pension fund managers. We've got about 250 pension funds, but pension fund managers, you've still got less than 10 of them as well. But the big market for what you need to look at is here. The 60,000 people in Zambia who open brokerage accounts and are investing in bonds, they need your help. A lot of them need information because they need to make investments. And then there's a group of people who we call the investables, the people who could be investing. They're about 500,000. Those are your working professionals, your Zambians in the diaspora, your various groups. So these are the people you need to try and look at. Now, look, most of the institutional investors have got very strong research divisions internally. However, the retail investors are growing very fast. They've actually grown sixfold. You've seen retail accounts growing sixfold because people are actually interested in investing. In fact, even Bank of Zambia also recently stated that in terms of their CSD accounts, they were going through about 200 account openings a day. And Luce has also, as I said, has experienced explosive growth over the last 15 years. So you can see that there is growing interest. And these are the people who need good articles written by you to be able to guide them. So who are these retail investors? So from my research and also from my interaction, often university educated people, they are professionals, they are employed, sometimes self-employed. They are often found in urban areas, and they're also found abroad, and they're focusing on investing for retirement and for their financial. So you've got to understand, these are people who are using their savings to put their money in the market, but they able to make financial decisions of investing. So stock reporting should cater for the needs of these people. You need to provide them with clear, insightful, actionable market data and information. So that's who you're writing this article for. So when you're sitting writing this article, remember there's a person who's taking that 500, 1,000, 2,000 kwacha every month out of their income, putting it in markets, and they're basing it on the information they have. So you have got this ethical responsibility to help these people have clear information, as well as advisors and many other people, but you've got to do that as well. So just to kind of step back, I want to step back a bit because this is now my kind of financial help hat, where you have to look at how people interact with money. There's 4 ways people interact with money. I'm going to ask this question at the end of the day because it's something you should remember. Now, the 4 ways people interact with money is that they make it. It's very simple. You actually have to make money somewhere. All of you here, I judge, are here because you go somewhere where you actually have to make money. It's called a salary. So you either make a salary, you make profits in a business, you make fees consulting. A person also has to manage their money, their budgeting, their saving, their spending. So there's financial information they need to get to be able to make financial decisions to manage their money properly. And then there's people who are multiplying money, people who are investing it. So they've got to do investing and asset management. That level right there, the people who are at the stage where they've made money, they've managed it, they've got some savings and they're investing it. These are the people who are going to be reading your articles. So it's not everyone. And I want to give you that clear understanding because they sometimes is this overlap between political reporting and financial reporting. Political reporting, you always get these questions where people ask, how does this matter to the person in insert compound name, compound, and how is this going to affect them? Investment and stock news matters to the people who are investing in the markets at the moment. It matters to the people. It's our job, obviously, as market practitioners to grow that market, but it happens to them. And then people who maintain their money. So stock reporting is not a mass market news. It's not an every person news. It's specific to the people who want to actually make investments in those stocks. And you'll be shocked how many individuals put their hard-earned savings in there. And some of them will do it based on articles that some of you have written. So as I said, you've got a responsibility. So what's the size of this market? Zambia's got about 10 million adults, and about 5% of them are the ones who are at that multiplying money stage. They're kind of capable of making those investments. but only about 10% of them are actively engaged in investing right now. This is where we are, and we're trying to grow this number so that we can at least even get this 5% fully active in the market. So this means that stock news, again, is not a mass market thing, it's a niche market thing. Repeat after me, please. Stock market news is not a mass market thing, it's a niche market thing. Okay, just want you to switch your hats on when it comes to that. So what level of complexity should you have when reporting? Well, these are university educated people most of the time. They're financially literate individuals majority of the time. But that doesn't mean it's time for you to start showing them all the vocabulary you have. Okay, there's no need to show people. You basically, they can handle some technical terms, so you don't have to over explain everything, but you really want to target about a grade 9 to grade 12 kind of level of speaking. So when you're writing, I know generally you want to keep it grade 5, grade 6 because you're doing it for the nation. You can bump it up to about grade 9, grade 12. This is kind of the communication I think we've picked up on this. And the key focus you want to focus on is how does the news I'm writing? I want you, when you're writing your article and you're about to publish it, ask the question, how is this going to help someone make a financial or investment decision? Because that's what someone's going to do with it. So it's not just about writing an article, it's about helping someone make a decision. So you want to avoid you want to avoid how does this affect insert person compound name kind of questions. You want to say this is not a mass market. Again, I say it's a niche market. Capital markets reporting is more specialized. And I want to give you at least a bit of encouragement. We don't all become great at this. It takes about 3 years of continuously doing this for you to become good at this. Okay. So don't get discouraged when you see this looks like a mountain. If you continuously report on listed companies for about 3 years, you're going to pick up some trends and you're going to get better at it. But just stick with it. And you know, the funny thing about this kind of reporting is the more specialized you get at it, the more internationally you can actually get picked up. So if you're good at this, you can actually be picked up because there are not many Africans, let alone Zambians, Africans who are specialized in invest in capital markets news. And there are investors who are interested around the world about people who can actually report well. So the key takeaways, financial reporting is not general news. Thank you. It's a niche. Okay, I'm going to keep catching you on that one. Retail investors are driving the stock market growth. So there is a growing retail market who need your information. And keep your explanations clear, but not oversimplified. Target grade 9 to grade 12 and focus on the investment impact. How does this affect a person's ability to invest their money well? Your news can actually drive a lot of that if you research it well and you gain trust. Because one of the things a lot of these people are finicky about is, can I trust what you're telling me? When I put my money somewhere, can I trust what you're telling me? So the more objective and the less sensationalized you are about reporting about companies, and I'll talk about how to actually get around that. Okay, so that kind of gives you the picture of who. Now let's get into the why, the actual reporting. So why does market reporting matter? Well, the thing is, capital markets and investment markets thrive on transparency and trust. So if you can give me a lot of information that I can trust, I can make financial decisions. So if you report well on financial markets, people make decisions based on that. So if the news does a lot of that, people will open up the news. And I'll tell you one thing that you may not understand. I know a lot of you are thinking these days news is a hard thing because you're competing with social media. And it's hard. You know, you're trying to publish at the pace that social media is just putting out posts. But this group of people who read financial decision making content, when they find a source they can trust, they stick with it because you are the person who's going to tell them how to manage their money. So just remember that once you become a trusted source, you have a loyal viewer. So quality reporting helps because it attracts people to invest, individuals, institutions all over the world. If you report well, people start to invest. Now, report well doesn't mean you become a cheerleader for the country and you only say positive things. If you report consistently what's happening, the truth, then people tend to invest more when they know a lot more. Okay. So you don't have to give a rosy picture all the time. You just have to tell people the truth and they tend to invest more. It also prevents misinformation and speculative panic because people tend to panic whenever when things are not reported well. I'll give you an example. When the unfortunate thing of that happened to, for example, to Invest Trust as a bank, obviously getting shut down. This bank was going through corrosion for multiple years in terms of its financials, and no one reported on it. Then we only all rushed into the news of Invest Trust when it got shut down. But the warnings could have been issued to the retail investors a lot more if I think there was a lot more engagement from even just the communication side. So you don't have to create these market shock events when now finally a company gets delisted or something happens. You can actually start giving people gradual information where now they can start to see, hold on, there's a trend building up here. Okay. And then it also enhances investor confidence. Now, I know when we say the words investor confidence, you know, you people, when you think of an investor, you just think of this person who has come off a plane and is coming to open a mine. But all of you in this room are investors. You realize that? How many of you here have a NAPSA? How many of you contribute to NAPSA? Hands up. Some of your employers are going to get investigated like this. But you are indirectly an investor already there because that's an institutional fund that invests in the capital markets. So anybody who invests needs to be confident about why they're investing. That's one of the reasons the only investment people make in Zambia a lot is building flats because we're confident in that. But if we can report well on the rest of the markets, we can build confidence where people can not only have flats, but they can have multiple assets, stocks, bonds, various things. Poor quality reporting can exaggerate market moves. A 2% movement in a share is reported as the stock plummets. That is not that is not a plummeting stock. Okay. And what that does is when you use the word plummet, the person stops looking at the 2% movement. And they just know that, oh, I'm losing my money. Then they go and rush and panic and they start calling for selling. So what you want to do is have proper quality reporting and data-driven reporting. But I also want to you also want to go a step further. There's a difference between reporting and analyzing. So reporting is stock X dropped 5% today. Analyzing is stock X dropped 5% due to new tax policies affecting revenue. So when you can start telling people what's causing this, and you can talk to financial advisors, investment people to also tell you that, that's when somebody's saying, hey, this news site, these people are actually telling me why this is happening, I'm trusting them even more. So your role is to bridge the gap between the data of stock X dropped 5% to the reasons and the things that are happening behind it. Okay, everyone follow? So we have a pyramid here that helps you look at things. This is what we call the Dickory model. And it basically says there are 4 levels of things. There's data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Okay, data is a number, 5%. Something has moved 5%. Is that good? Is that bad? We don't know because it's just a number, 5%. Information is when it's presented over a period of time or compared to maybe other companies, other this, other that. If I tell you this company made 5 million kwacha in profits this year, is that good? Is that bad? You don't know. But if I tell you they made 10 million kwacha and 5 million in profit, oh, that means they made 50% profit margin. Now you're starting to see it's a highly profitable company. You see what we mean now? So it becomes good when you look at it in context, when you look at it as well. So data, which is facts, figures, numbers, requires context. Okay. So this is why you cannot just sit get a report from from a company, and then immediately go and publish it. You need to start saying, okay, this is what the company has said about their financials this year. What were their financials 6 months ago? What were their financials last year? And now you're building up information. Data becomes information when it's populated into history or comparison. If you say, okay, this company has a 40% profit margin, is that good or bad? We don't know. What about the rest of the companies in the industry? Then you know whether it's operating better than the rest of its people in the industry. That is when it becomes information. Then, in order to be able to look at data and be able to now communicate it to people, you must know what that information means. What does it mean if a company's revenues are growing? What does it mean if its profits are declining? Then that becomes knowledge. All right? That's what knowledge is. Knowledge is now where you're able to give people an idea of what it means, give them a concept, you're able to explain to them. So now when it becomes knowledge, this is where your journey ends. Because the next level, you need a license for that, what we call wisdom. When you're now able to tell people what to do, what should I do with this company? Should I buy it? Should I sell it? What should I do? What's my recommendation? So what you can do as reporters, whenever you get a set of financials, is also call some financial advisors, call some people who are licensed investment professionals and say, these results have come out. What are your recommendations? So then you can also now start to publish that. And then you're really giving people rich investment. Because remember what we said, somebody is making a financial decision off of this. Okay. Everyone following? We haven't lost you in the clouds yet. All right. Good. So as financial reporters, when it comes to stocks, you are at the knowledge level. So you, whenever you're given something, you need to have a database of information. You should have their financials last year. Let me give an example. If a company is saying, we know that we have been making losses this year, but next year we're going to work on improving our finances by coming out with a new product. Then next year again, they come and say, we know that it was a loss this year, but we're still working on this new product. Then again, the other year, they come again and say, then you'll think there's something wrong happening here. And there are companies that actually do that. Every year, they'll keep telling you the same thing. If you take their statement and you just go and publish it, you're giving a false picture because you're not giving it in the context of the last 5 statements they've been given. So you always want to measure today's information with the last 5 years. Okay, this is where you become a quality reporter in these areas. If you always ask, how does this look with the last 5 years? How does this look against the top 5 competitors? That's what you always have to ask that question. That's the context you're always looking for. So this model always help you. You have to collect data, present it as information, and then report it as knowledge. Your report, your story becomes the knowledge that you share, and then someone picks it up and says, this actually might be a good buy. Maybe I need to sell this stock. Maybe I should just hold it. Okay. So where do you get your sources of information? Reliable sources. You've got LUCE. You've got Securities and Exchange Commission, BOZ for your bonds, ZRA if you want to look at government information, ZDA, industry regulators. Say you're looking at Airtel, but you want to look at how the telecoms industry is looking. You need to get the Zicta report. So you also need to also do that when Airtel gives you their financials, what did the last Zicta report say, so that you're tallying them up. There's global sources because these companies we operate in a global universe, in a global world. So we have to make sure we get information from outside in the world. And we've also got to look at company financial statements, earnings report, investor presentations. That's important. Now, a practical tip is always cross-check numbers and sources before publishing. Don't just take the first thing you're given. Always try and make sure you verify. Verify the information. Okay, because if you start publishing mistakes and you're not checking it, your trust levels start to drop. Because remember, if you're going to be a good stock reporter, trust is your currency here. Okay. If there's anything you're going to remember. Then the next thing I want to give you is there's an old saying that says, ignore the noise and focus on the signal. A lot of what gets reported is noise. And this is what happens a lot. You want to avoid noisy reporting. Noisy reporting is when a piece of information hits the market and somebody publishes a thought somewhere on social media, and then you just grab that headline and you go and say such and such said this, and it's an explosive headline. That's noisy reporting. And people eventually, if you're a noisy person, what do you think people start to do? What do you do to a noisy person who's consistently noisy? You start ignoring them. And what happens to, and is it a good thing for the press to be ignored? No. So we stop you from being ignored by saying focus on the signal. So what is the difference between signal and noise? It's a bit of a physics lesson, but back to this. It says the definition is signal is a function that is used to convey data. The purpose of sending a signal is because you want someone to receive a message. You don't just want to send sounds into the air. Noise is just when you want to just publish anything. Signal is when you want to make sure a specific message is received. You understand? And then obviously forms, signal comes in the form of motion, image, sound. Noise is just is anything. So in other words, signal has a shape. There's a consistent way. If you are a stock reporter, you want to report in a consistent way. And if we see you reporting in a consistent way, you start becoming trusted. If you just report anyhow, anyway, you become noisy. No, signal is credible. Noise is self-promoting. Signal whispers. Noise begs for attention. Signal is an original sound. So your original thoughts about what the financials of this company say, noise just randomly added to original sounds. Signal triggers people to take initiative. Noise just wants you to join a bandwagon of anything. Yeah, and I'll give you a simple example. It may not be related to this, but think about what happened with the Bank of Zambia currency announcement. Look how everyone just started doing backflips, telling us stories of the 80s are coming back, the sky is falling, everything is melting, as if these people don't create currency every time. But and all it took were people who could just say, this is what actually happens. And I think the problem is because everyone is rushing to be the first, we're often getting things wrong. So you also want to invoke logical response, not emotion. And unfortunately, we're trained today to have click-worthy headlines. That's very dangerous in financial reporting. Click-worthy headlines leads to emotional responding. You also want to make sure you're giving people clarity, not giving them a distraction, and you want them to think, not to feel. So when you're writing, just remember there's a person receiving this. You're like a chef. You know, you're creating food in a restaurant. Remember, somebody has to eat what you're making. Okay. Right. So now that I've given you my lecture on industry standards, let's get into 3 models that you'll need. This is the takeaway part now. Okay. This is the part you're gonna now need to use. This is the meat. Okay, so this is the part you write down. So there's 2 things that happened to any company. Remember, a stock is just a company. It's a share of a company, and a company has to operate. What is the purpose of a company? Anyone? What does a company primarily operate to do? What do companies want to do the most? Make what? Exactly. And listed companies are not, they're not deities in the sky who are different. They're the same. The same way any company wants to make a profit, guess what? They're trying to make a profit. So they're trying to, there are things that are going to happen in the economy that will help them make a profit. And there are things that are going to happen in the economy and in their business that will resist them from making a profit. The things that will help them are called tailwinds. Okay, write that down. A tailwind is a positive factor that boosts the ability of a company to make a profit. So, have laws changed in favor of this company? Have they received better taxes? Is the economy growing? Have there been innovations that have changed for them? Are people starting to take on their investments, their product a bit more? That is what will happen to drive them. For example, if you're looking at a company like Puma Energy, Puma Energy has had to switch to cooking gas. I think you saw the purchase that there's now Puma Gas. A couple of years ago, they announced that they bought Ogas. Why did Puma Energy do that? Does anyone have an idea? Exactly. Yeah, and there's 2 reasons. the growth of the number of cars in Zambia has gone down to 6%. We used to have 25% growth of vehicles in Zambia back in 2007. Now we've only got a 6% growth of vehicles in 2024. So because there's so few cars, we've got 950,000 cars in Zambia. Fuel goes into cars. So if there's no growth in the motor vehicle industry, what do you think is going to happen to the oil industry? It's got a lower customer. So they had to switch. What was the growing thing? We had blackouts, we had all sorts of things. People realized that, you know what, when I switch on cooking gas in my house, it won't blow up. And gas, while the fuel sector is growing about 6 to 7% a year, cooking gas is growing 21% a year. So they switched. You see, people have been doing this for many years. That's how I know this stuff. So load shedding, in as much as load shedding was painful to the rest of us, for the people who were making gas, what was it? Was it a headwind or a tailwind? It was a tailwind. When the power goes off, you can't cook with electricity. You have to buy gas. So now that's how you start to blend your reporting. When you're sitting in a Puma Energy, report, you're going to ask them and say, look, what's happening with your gas division? Is it what's driving your revenue growth? Is it what's driving your profitability? Those are the questions you need to ask. And then headwinds are the things that oppose. So think about a plane or anything, even a bird. When anything is blowing against it, it's pushing it back. Okay, so headwinds are negative forces, rising interest rates, inflation, and certain things. These are the things that are going to drive your growth, the things that are going to push back your growth. Okay, so here are some key metrics you need to keep. If you're reporting on companies, you want to know revenue growth. Revenue and revenue growth, it's important. You need to know the profit margins, the percentage of revenue that is profit. Operating profit, gross profit, you need to know those terms. Net profit. It's unfortunate, but you have to know those terms. Are the margins increasing? Are they shrinking? What are the debt levels of the company? Something called earnings per share. So if you take all the profits of the company and divide it by the number of shares, how much profit is attributable to each share? That number actually affects stock price a lot over the long run. So keep an eye on this. Price to earnings ratio. It tells you what's the price versus the earnings per share. It tells you whether a company is undervalued or overvalued. So these are important metrics. Whenever you're looking at reporting on a listed company, here are some key numbers you want to look at all the time. A lot of the news is in there. Have these numbers cross industry, have them over the last 5 years for the company, and you'll be able to tell a story to the reader. The other thing, 5 minutes, all right. The other thing you need to look at is the PESTEL framework, okay? You have to look at the areas of the economy where there is change. So things like politics. What political factors are causing pressure to these metrics? Okay. What political changes, policy changes, anything? Is it trade, anything, levels of corruption, whatever? What is affecting that? Economic factors. So you have to then be able to report stocks in the framework of the economy. So look at changes in the economy. Society. What has made people stop buying cars as much as they used to as well? Well, it's the Forex rate. And you know that younger people are not buying cars as fast because they can now switch on their phone and book a car. It's actually affecting car growth. So social technological change is affecting these things. Environmental change. What's happening in the environment? It affects farming. Zambeef is a stock that's affected by the environment. Power companies are affected by the environment because of hydroelectricity. So environmental risk and legal and regulation. So you have to also look at, have regulators changed any laws that are affecting things? For example, Airtel got fined recently by Zicta for an outage, and they got told you have to now start to improve the network by the 28th of February. So Airtel now has to grab money quickly. Is that going to affect their profits? Yes, it's going to affect their cash. It's going to affect their ability to pay dividends to their shareholders. So you have to look at, does this factor have a high impact, low impact? Has it affected the actual profits? So ask people in those reports, what has led to your profits coming down? But you won't know that if you don't have the profits over the last 5 years. What has led to the profits coming up? What's led to revenue growth? Why are your debt levels rising? Why are your debt levels declining? What are you doing? So that's how you get to report it. Then you also need to look at something we call the Bridgewater matrix. And this breaks down what's happening over markets. Now, in a very short time, I'm just going to explain to you that there are only two factors that affect markets in the world. There are many things we'll tell you, but the two most impactful things that affect investments and assets are economic growth and inflation. That's it. And I want you to think about economic growth as levels of rain. So, and as I'm saying that, economic growth is like the rain. So when you have a lot of rain, that's like high economic growth. And I want you to think about it this way. Do you know there are only two factors, except for your fashion sense, that affect the clothing you put on every morning? How much is it raining? Is it not? How hot is it? How cold is it? So I want you to think of inflation as the level of heat, and I want you to think of GDP as the level of rain. Make it rain. Just put it like that in your head. Okay? And one of the things you'll see is that the stock market is affected by strong growth, low inflation. It's when it operates the best. Our stock market is a bit resilient, by the way. Especially over the last 3 years, we've actually seen that it's grown even with high inflation. But the optimal point you'll find the stock market operating is high growth, low inflation. You also see some defensive companies doing well in high growth, high inflation. You'll see some of the defensive companies, they'll also do well. Bonds, shorter term bonds tend to do very well in high inflation, low growth. That's also what you'll start to pick up as well, while longer term bonds tend to do well in low inflation, low growth. So what is happening with growth and inflation will also tell you how to expect what's happening in the market as a whole. So this is a framework that also helps you. Pestel, it also helps you. And then finally, they're what I call the four horsemen. What's happening around the world? How is inflation looking around the world? Rising inflation can lead to what we call imported inflation. Interest rates. If interest rates are rising in America, guess what they'll do in Zambia? They'll also go up. So what's happening with interest rates? International trade. If trade is slowing down and what's it? And the world GDP is slowing down, what do you think is going to happen to our copper sales and all sorts of things? They slow down. And what happens with this industrial demand? Most of what's happening with the copper price is affected by industrial demand in China. So if you can also pick up on what's happening around the world, you'll see which winds are blowing. For the purpose of this, I will try and ask them to share this, but this is kind of a summary that we even have of how to even look at a company. But for the purpose of time, I have to slow that part down. But I'll ask them if they can share this part. So these are just some examples of how we report things, summarize them. You can see this is an example of like Puma Energy historic revenue. So in order to see what this year's revenue is, you have this chart to help you see what's going on. You need to look at profits as well. You need to look at profit margins as well. And also you need to look at things like profit growth levels. Are these things growing? So you need to be comfortable with charts because it helps. All right, let me just give you some of my final thoughts as we round up. Sorry about that. Markets are not rational. They are sometimes emotional. So investors do react to news emotionally. So you need to be less emotional in your reporting. If you are emotional and the person's emotional, these are two emotional people colliding. Okay. So don't cause panic sales. Don't cause stock jumps. Talking hyper optimistically. Look at the information and the data. Because how media shapes sentiment. You don't recognize this, but if you keep reporting clearly, you can actually shape how people feel about the stock market. That is your ethical responsibility as the media. So good reporters need to remain objective and they need to remain balanced. Negative language like crash or plummet does not help. Okay? Red flags, very quickly in your reporting. Don't try and become jargon filled if you don't understand something. If you don't understand something, simplify your language. Okay? Ignoring macroeconomic context. Don't ignore the context or that the company exists in. Don't rely only on the company's press statement without going deeper into the actual financials. Don't fail to check your sources. And again, I'm going to stress this: don't sensationalize. These are people's savings. If you sensationalize with a person's savings, that's dangerous. And my key takeaways of today: go beyond the headline. Okay, I know we're always told the headline is 50% of the work, but you need to go deeper. People who make financial decisions read. You'll be shocked. I know people think that Zambians don't, they read. Trust me. Use the Pestel framework and the Bridgewater to see what's happening at a macro level and how that's interacting with the company. Understand market sentiment and how investors react to media narratives. In other words, tell them the truth, don't give them a narrative. Know your data sources. And again, I'm going to say this again: avoid sensationalism. Okay, so hopefully I've given you that.
Thank you very much, Munyumba. That was great. If you didn't find it great, yeah, either full from the Nshima you ate. But I hope you find that insightful. There's some great nuggets there. And, especially on the side of the market, oftentimes we can't give things like advisory directly. So these people who are in the market, who know and understand the market and have been in it for a long time, are really good sources for information or just trying to understand the market better. But Munyumba, once again, thank you so much for that. I think we can give him another round of applause. So I would like you to hang on to your questions. I know you have some for Munyumba. Munyumba, you're still here with us? Yeah. So if you've got any further questions, he'll still be around. I just want us to move a little bit on. We've got another guest coming up. And I feel that this guest needs no introduction because especially for most of you who are in the media fraternity, you should have heard of this name before. I'd love to go through his CV. I can't go through the fullness of it from head to toe. But essentially, the next guest is Ambassador Anthony Mukwita. And I think we know him, right? Yep, legend, right? So he's done a lot of work, I think, in the media fraternity. I think most of us know his decades of experience in the media industry. The fact that obviously he was out as an ambassador and represented the country in Germany. And there's so many. I wish I could go through the whole thing. It would probably take me another hour. But I would ask him to come forward. I think this is a section which you'd be able to relate to, the fact that he's had the experience of being in the market. He's media personnel, he's been there, he's done that. So I think he's going to be a great source of information. So do listen attentively, and I think he'll be willing to answer questions later on. So Ambassador, thank you so much. I think the mic is there. Or you want to use this one? Okay, that's fine. You just need to turn it on. This button there.
Thing on. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please, with your permission, may I ask you to just be upstanding just for 1 minute? Just for 1 minute. I will explain what happens next after this 1 minute. Everybody, including you, sir. All right, that's it. The trick is over. You may sit down. So the reason I asked you to be upstanding for just a minute was to disrupt your comfort zone. You are well fed. You have had your breakfast this morning here at this wonderful Sunday's Creation, a couple of tea breaks, and you are coming from having your lunch right now. And you have received a lot of knowledge, and you have heard lots of great presentations from great speakers like my brother Muyumba. Please give him another hand. I've learned a lot from him there. So after that, you are comfortable enough to sit down, sip your cup of coffee or tea. But markets, which you have come to analyze today or learn about, do not sit. They are like a storm in a teacup. They are always brewing and looking for the next biggest thing to come on the scene. Let me give you an example of what happened on January 20. There was a major global story. People thought it was a political story, but it was actually a business story unfolding right before our very own eyes. Donald Trump, a very famous gentleman in the world, he became president for the second time in the United States of America. He became number 47 after having been number 45 before and lost to Uncle Joe Biden. He came back with guns blazing. Everybody had written him off and sent him to his multi-million-dollar palatial in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. But he didn't sit down. He decided to fight all the odds to come back and be president again. When he appeared on the stage to receive the oath of office, I don't know whether you gentlemen and ladies recall who was on the stage before even his vice president, J.D. Vance, got on the stage. Any guesses? Elon Musk. That's correct. I knew I could count on you. Miss Lina told me that we have about 40 journalists in the house. I can recognize a few of them. I've worked with them in the past, such as Mr. Joseph Chanda, Mr. Jeff Kapembwa, and others I've worked with when I was managing director and editor-in-chief at the Zambia Daily Mail. And others I've interacted with at cocktails. Journalists love cocktails a lot. I hope Ms. Lina has organized one here for this evening. But the reason Elon Musk was on the stage before even the running mate and vice president of the president of the United States of America, the most powerful man on earth, is because Elon Musk is a businessman, a very rich businessman, whom as we speak right now stands as the richest man on earth with a net worth of just about 400 billion US dollars. Go figure. Maybe with a little change. The entire Zambia, with a population of about 20 million people, has a GDP of only a meager 25 billion, 27 billion dollars. He is worth 400 billion dollars. If you talk to me nicely, madam, I can give you his number later on. The other people that sat on the top table on that particular day was a young man called Mark Zuckerberg. I bet all of you in here are on Facebook or know somebody who is on Facebook. He is a businessman too, with a worth net of about $300 billion, $280 billion to $300 billion. The other man after Mark Zuckerberg was Mr. Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos. When they were enemies, Trump used to call him Jeff Bozo. If you used to watch cartoons those days, we used to watch a guy called Bozo the Clown. So he used to refer to him because Mr. Trump, if he doesn't like you, he will give you a name. Like Crooked Hillary, you know, Lying Ted, Little Marco, who is now his Minister of Foreign Affairs. All has been forgotten. Anyhow, Jeff Bezos is worth also about, in the range of about $300 billion. So in that room, there were three gentlemen that own 90 or 99% of all the money in the United States, or you can actually round it down to the globe, close to $1 trillion. Can you imagine? For just three guys. You may be wondering why I am giving you this analog. But the reason I am giving you this analog is because this is a business story. Business, you may be told by some people on the news desk that it could be a boring subject to cover. No, it is not. One of the richest men on earth, again, the former mayor of New York, Mr. Michael Bloomberg, worth about $100 billion, when he needed to throw around some change, and he asked around, how can I make some money and enjoy the whole thing as a businessman? One of his people said, invest in business news. He said, why in business news? He said, because business people, despite the fact that they work very hard, sometimes they are lazy. They want to sit on their computer. They want to see figures, pictures, statistics, scribbling all over so that they can make a decision. And right now, there is so much news, or rather so many stories masquerading as business news. So Mr. Bloomberg, if I were you and you have a little few dollars to burn, invest in news. And that is how Bloomberg News PLC was born. Mr. Muyumbwa will tell you, Ms. Lina will tell you that they subscribe to the business, platform of Bloomberg. The banks in Zambia, they subscribe to this. They pay anything between $15,000 to $20,000 per month to get accurate news, which you churn. I know so because I was the first official correspondent of Bloomberg News in Zambia way back in 2002. And the reason people want accurate information is because they are going to make a decision to either buy or sell. You heard Mr. Muyumbwa say, trust is very, very important. If you look at a newspaper story in the Zambia Daily Mail, in the Times of Zambia, News Diggers, the Daily Nation, the Daily Revelation, everywhere else, you will see what we all know as a byline on top. A Bloomberg news story, a Bloomberg business story, or a Reuters business news story does not often have the headline and the name of the reporter. The name of the reporter and the people that assisted them normally comes at the bottom by Jeff Kapembwa, with extra reporting by Lina and Muyumbwa. For further information, contact Muyumbwa at bloomberg.net or this telephone number. Any guesses of why they do that? Okay. You're holding back. I know you know. But the reason is simply because they want to tell you that this news is authentic and it is verifiable. If you have any doubt, get in touch with Mr. Jeff Kapembwa on this number. He will explain to you the story behind the story. So that is the introduction to my interactive discussion. If you notice, I haven't come with a PowerPoint presentation because firstly, as a diplomat and an editor-in-chief, I am not good at that. I speak much better than I write. The other reason is I was privileged enough to have a prior conversation with Ms. Lina, and she tells me that the Lusaka Stock Exchange or the Lusaka Bourse is more interested in going green. So the less paperwork you have, the better. That is not to mean I have not prepared anything for you. I have done at least 3 presentations. One of them is based on the fact that if you are going to report on an issue, you have to know it first. If you do not know the issue that you are reporting on, you cannot report on it adequately. So hence the reason you, in this case, are at the Lusaka Bourse workshop. You must understand what is the Lusaka Stock Exchange. And then you also have to understand that the Lusaka Stock Exchange does not exist in isolation. So we are on a continent called Africa. In that case, if you're going to talk about the Lusaka Stock Exchange first, you have to understand what is the Lusaka Stock Exchange, or what is a stock exchange, which I do believe you have already been educated upon since you came in the morning. And then once you find out that, then you also need to find out which one is the biggest stock exchange then in Africa. For instance, my initial research when we got in here, which I know you can get at the click of your finger, is that it's the JSE, which is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, established way back in the 1800s with a current capitalization worth of about $1 trillion today. Can you imagine? With about 300 companies listed there. So this begins to give you an impression of coming back to Lusaka now. What about the Lusaka Stock Exchange? The Lusaka Stock Exchange, you need to know if you're going to report on it, is that it was established, I could be corrected by Ms. Lina and Mr. Muyumbo, around 1994. I think with the help of the World Bank and its finance arm called the International Finance Cooperation, after they saw a need that Zambia has gone, or rather has liberalized, and it wants to get into the stock markets beyond the tuntembas that we have been doing for a long time. People were getting sophisticated. Before that, only a few white collars and blue collars could buy a share or two in the Nakambala Sugar Estate, into ZCCM and all. But with the entry on the market of the Lusaka Stock Exchange, it meant more people could participate in the stock exchange, because the stock exchange is a place where companies, I think the LUSE has about 22 listed. I could be wrong, there are probably more. 20, you see? And how do you do that? You simply ask the people that know. And you have to know when you're reporting the stock exchange that there is no stupid answer. There is no stupid question, actually. You just have to ask everything and hope that you get something correctly along the way. So hence, this is the first thing that you have to do. You have to have interest. It's not just about the Lusaka Stock Exchange. If you're going to write about the World Bank, you have to understand what is the World Bank. Why is it that the chief executive of the World Bank is always American? And why is it that the chief executive of the International Monetary Fund is always European, Georgieva or something like that? You got to understand that. If you're discussing NATO, the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, you have to understand why was it formed. If you are discussing BRICS, which is one of the biggest business stories happening right now, you have to understand what is BRICS, what brings about the acronyms BRICS, where is it going, what was the motivation for its formation. Once it is formed, once you have formed this firm opinion, which is not totally cast in stone, then you may start thinking of what stories you can write. For instance, we are told there are 20 companies on the Lusaka Bourse, B-O-U-R-S-E. That's another word for the exchange, if you want to sound clever like me, even though I am not. But it helps when you are talking to Muyumbo and Miss Lina at a cocktail. Yeah. So once you have established this, then you can start thinking about what kind of stories can you get. There is Lusaka Stock Exchange is worth how much? $7.4 billion, 20 companies around that. That means there is still a story there. If the JSE is 1 trillion and the LUSE is about $7 billion, $8 billion, it's more big. No, perhaps it's quite big, especially given the fact that it was only established in 1994. But then you have 20 stories there. What companies are listed there or traded? You also even have to understand what's the difference between a listed company and a quoted company. Because once you understand what they are, then you can explain to the readership. If you do not know how to explain this story to the leadership, that's where you find people telling you that business stories are boring. Business stories are not boring. That's why you saw Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk on the stage before even J.D. Vance or even Melania Trump. In fact, there is a saying amongst business analysts that it is the economics that rule politics, not politics that rule the economics. That's why you find you are very few in the business reporting sector. It is a little and a rough traveled road, but it pays off much more than that of general news, of going to a public rally where everybody say chatile, you know, mukwikile, and that kind of thing, compared to when you go to a boardroom where they say, you know, given the good rains that we have received, we expect that the harvest this year shall rise to 3 million metric tons from a low of 1.5 million metric tons. This shall mean we shall have an excess of this much. You know, you start having that intelligent discussion instead of, you know, the 2026 elections, you know, they are in the bag. They are in the bag. We've already won. And another one comes in. Why have you won? You know, and, you know, it just becomes a shouting match. You will find that there is actually a lot more pleasure in writing and analyzing business news than there is in general news. That's why you will find that people that report on business news, for instance, are like you, they wear business suits because they go to boardrooms. Different to the ones that do general news. I even end up as an ambassador, extraordinary and plenipotentiary like myself. Because you understand a little bit of something that the other guys do not. In fact, when you go to Bloomberg News or Reuters, you will find that the people that write those stories are not even reporters or journalists, from my experience when I was at Bloomberg. The person that wrote business law was a qualified lawyer from a Stellenbosch University. The person that wrote on the economic outturns or downturns of Africa was a trained economist from Pretoria University. The person that wrote on the markets was an economist or accountant from the University of Zambia or Copperbelt University. So I have not come here to teach you how to write a business story, because I do believe by virtue of Lena and Lucy inviting you over here, they already know that you are capable of doing that. I came here specifically to just try and inspire you to say that the path you are on is a great path. Most of the guys that come out of the new business news desk go to work as marketing officers or public relations officers for one bank or another or a non-governmental organization. It is a pathway to much, much bigger things. So I'm not here to talk to you about the who, the when, the what, the how. Or that is only news when the man bites the dog, and not when the dog bites the man. It's a normal thing. So that's one of the presentation number one. Presentation number two, which Ms. Lena will give you, is simply an example I have outlined on how you go about identifying business news, which you already know because you're already in the newsroom before you became a business journalist or before you became a general news journalist. That is self-explanatory. You will read it and apply it to what you already know. The third and last presentation that I did, I asked Ms. Lena to put it up, is a Bloomberg selection of some of the most important stories that occurred. And I'm sorry, these stories occurred in Europe and the United States. Those are the examples that I got, but they are top 10. I want you to take a look at these stories. They are just snippets, so that I don't seem to be talking too much on my own. I want you to pick out one or two stories and let me know, or let all of us know, why you think they made it on the top 10 as top business news stories for the last year and a half as we enter into 2022. As Ms. Lena sets up that, I also want you to think of, before I step off the stage here, because I know you have been sitting here for a very long time, I want you to think of a story each, because there's about 40 of you, from what you have learned about what the Lusaka Stock Exchange is and what you know about Zambia, a country of 20 million people, Africa's second largest producer of copper, the world's third largest producer of emeralds after India, second, and then third, Thailand. What do you think has been the biggest story in your personal view? There is no wrong or right answer. It is a thought. Once you have thought of this, we will get maybe 10 of, maybe 5, looking at the huge number. Maybe 5. We will do a random search and just say, hey, Lena, can you please tell us what your top story is? Just one and why. And then for the rest, because I am holding the microphone, so basically I've been told for the duration that I'm here, I am the boss. So you got to do what I say or else I crack the whip. So what we're going to do after that is, as you all go out, you already have a contact for Miss Lena. You should send out one story idea, one business story idea, which you're going to follow up conclusively. One story idea, it's a challenge. You never know where that story idea is going, but it is going to be based on the fact that you were inspired by this story idea from having attended this discussion at Sandy's Creation. You tie it somehow to this business venture that you've had. Consider this as having been a business interaction and not a workshop or where you just came to sit and drink some water. So that is my challenge to you. I am in touch constantly with Miss Lena. I will ask to find out which stories you submitted so that this doesn't end right here and you go out. Have something that you can remember with. If it doesn't go into your newspaper, I'm sure it can go on your Facebook page. If it is very nice, I might even use it on my Facebook page. My page has more than 60,000 followers on it. So basically, it's bigger than some of the small newspapers in here. That's why I'm friends with Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. So, if, yes, I will, since some of you are far and the site is as bad as mine, I am close. I will read just a snippet of what the story is. We don't have to go to all the 10. We will probably just read even 3 or 4. And then you, if you pay close attention, please be able to tell me why you think this story made it as one of the big business stories of 2024. So here is story number 1, The Gambler Who Beat Roulette by Kit Shello. Do you know what roulette is? You know, when you go in a casino, people are gambling. They roll that thing, that is roulette. I'm sure lots of you who read novels, fiction and stuff have heard of Russian roulette. That is totally different. That's where they put one bullet in a gun and spin it and threaten to blow your brains out if you don't tell the truth. But we are talking about the one in the casino. And this is The Gambler Who Beat Roulette. So it was a story, amazing. So this was, I think if you can decken that, sir, if you can just do that magic that you performed, it will be great. Yeah, because then the focus will be on the screen. Anyhow, so it was a story with an incredible premise, a glimpse into the people who had figured out how to break what casino experts viewed as unbreakable, namely the game of Russian roulette. We can move to the next story. I hope you're paying attention. We can move to the next story. This one is done. Story number 2 is how to be 18 years old again for only $2 million per year. Please pay attention because I'm going to ask to find out what you think these stories are important, why they made it on the top 10 news business stories of 2023. So this is a story where you were when you learned of a man named Brian Johnson, probably at your desk last year, when Vance dropped a story on the eccentric tech millionaire who is fixated with youth, with staying young. So we have moved with a person from roulette to a person who wanted to stay young and was ready to blow $2 million. Please note, one beat some golden rules of how you can't beat the casino by breaking the jinx of the Russian roulette. The other one was ready to burn $2 million to stay young. Story number 3. What happens when Dave Chappelle buys up your town? Dave Chappelle is one of the biggest comedians. He's actually not known as a comedian. He's now known as a social commentator. When he speaks about an issue starting from politics in the United States to, Israelis killing Palestinians in Gaza, it always does make news. So he's gone beyond that. So what happens? Dave Chappelle lives in a small town called which springs is this? One of the Silver Springs or something in a small town in Yellow Springs, Ohio. So what happens when he becomes your neighbor? I could go on and on, but remember there is 3. There are 10 of them. She will give you the what. Now I just want to get back to you again. The first one we had was on the guy who beat Tech in the casinos to win money. The next one was on the man who would spend $2 million to stay young. And the last one was on how Dave Chappelle, this social commentator heavyweight, buys a small town and it becomes news. May I just ask you a salient question? Anybody, please remember there is no stupid answer. It's just an answer. It's an interactivity. Nobody's going to judge you. Miss Linda won't judge you. Mr. Mimba won't judge you. I will judge you. Sorry, I won't judge you. So if we can just come on top of your head, why do you think these 3 stories become part of the top 10 important? Yes, sir. Why are they interesting as business stories?
Out of my top of my head, one of the biggest fears with people that have got money is dying. And the issue where one says you can be young, one millionaire would want to spend everything to get back to their old age or their young age so that they can spend what they have worked for. I think that is why it was one of the best stories around.
Amazing. Like we said, no bad answer or stupid answer, just an answer. And that was very courageous. Mostly people are scared like they were, or even standing up. You don't know why you're standing up. But there you were. You gave it a shot. Rich people are scared of dying. I would be, if I was worth $400 billion like that guy, Elon Musk. Who gets my money after that? My wife gets married to another guy. And they start burning $1 billion every year, which I worked for all my life. All right. Any other thoughts on why these 3 stories are so important? One of the top 3. Any other thoughts? Yes, sir. Okay. We've got one here, right here. Yes, sir. No, it's you. How to remain young. How to...
Want to dress up.
Please just say it again. Just say it again.
Everyone wants to look young. You see, they want to behave, conduct themselves like a youth. The way they dress, you see an adult. So probably everyone wants to find that magic. If only they could take back the hands of time and look a bit younger than the actual age.
Amazing. So a guy wants to blow $2 million to remain young. Very, very important. There was a hand behind there. Which one would be your story, sir? And this time, after that good gentleman, we will put a gun to the head and ensure that there is at least a woman that speaks. Because I've seen there's a lot of beautiful women in here, but I don't understand why they don't want to say anything at all. Yeah. Okay, sir.
I think my story would be on the Roret.
On the Rollet, yes.
yeah.
Yes.
The owners of the game never thought that a person could actually win an entire game. They thought they would just keep on playing and playing. But then their entire profit had gone in a minute or a second after that person won. It's like me playing chess on a computer. Nobody believes that I will win chess on the computer. The moment I will win it, the computer will go off. I don't know if anybody has ever tried that.
So you're the grandmaster. Thank you very much. We said we needed to hear from a lady. Anybody? Please. Remember, no stupid or wise answers.
Okay, then I'm
Anything you say goes.
Okay, so for me, when I look at the three stories that we have had a look at, and looking at how heavy the stories about the issues about stock markets and how technical they can be, I'm looking at these stories and why they made it up there is because they were about this ordinary person and they became so interesting because they're just about this ordinary person who has an impact on the stock market.
Amazing. Amazing. Can we give a big hand to that lady there? It had to take the lady, but please, another one there. At least you've encouraged. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. For me, all three stories
Are important,
are important.
which is why they were top
Because
10.
yes, because as human beings, we're such pessimists. Like we do not believe in something good that can happen. And when you look at these three stories, they not just talk about luck. They also talk about the possibility that someone can go from a hero from not
From
having
zero.
money today and waking up a billionaire tomorrow.
That's
So
amazing.
this gives stock market a kind of like a utopia where people believe it's a game of chance. It's not really like betting, but it is like betting in a way, where people can now believe to say, okay, this thing can work. Today I can make the right investments, the numbers can add up, and tomorrow I can just blow up and be rich. That's what I
That's
think.
amazing. Another big hand there. Maybe we can take in one last woman. Ah, here she is. She wants to say something. I could just saw that you wanted to say something. Please go ahead. Yes. You were saying?
For the comedian.
Dave Chappelle. Yes. And why?
I think it made it to the top 10 because
Please just
it's
go
okay.
ahead. Mhm.
Okay. Because it's very unusual. It's very rare for a person to buy.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, thank you. It's very rare for a person to buy a township or a town rather. So I think it made it to the top 10 because it was so unusual. And yes.
Okay. We can go on because this is an interactive session. But I want to let you know that none of you that have chosen to volunteer to speak have given a wrong answer. You have all given the correct answer of why these were part of the top 10 stories, even though we only counted up to 3. The biggest denominator on all these stories is what our good lady said. It was about people. It was about a person, the guy that hacked the casino, a guy that bought a town, and a guy that wanted to blow $2 million to stay young. Why am I saying this is important? Because if you make your reporting of the Lusaka Stock Exchange or of the World Bank or of BRICS or of the International Monetary Fund about people, if you dress your stories with a human face, people will read them. Because people like to read about other people. People may like numbers, but if you translate those numbers into faces and voices of people, then they will read. So if somebody tells you that reporting business news or covering the stock markets in Lusaka, Zambia, the Lusaka Bourse is boring, they are boring because they haven't yet figured out how they can put a face to Mopani copper mines being sold to IRS of Dubai or to Vedanta of India. Once you start giving a face to a story, you will find that even your reporting will be more interesting. I'll give you an example of the oil spill in Mississippi. It may be far away. Way back when Barack Obama was president, there was an oil spill. Some of the big news agencies were talking about how much Exxon was losing billions of dollars. So nobody was really interested. But one reporter picked out a family that had gotten contaminated through that water and that their kid was struggling and was going to die, and then brought it down to the fact that there was a major oil spill. And alas, what happened is Barack Obama did make that famous statement, which I have said and gotten in trouble with on TV once. He came up after he read a story that a family had suffered health consequences. It said, I want to know whose ass must get kicked. That's the president of the United States saying, I want to know whose butt must get kicked, simply meaning I want to know who must get punished for this heinous crime. But that was a business story, but it gained more traction and more sense because it was now given a human face. So you've got 20 companies on the Lusaka Stock Exchange. They all involve human beings. It is not only Mr. Nicholas, the CEO, whom you're going to talk to, or the analyst, Mr. Muyumba or Ms. Lina. You can talk to them because they are the experts. They have the statistics and the figures. But when you talk to them, also ask them to explain what are equities. So for instance, when I'm talking to my 12-year-old kid, I don't say, you know, son, you know, our equities in Zambia sugar have kind of fallen, because you said, Dad, what are you talking about? You know, you have to ask Mr. Muyumba and Ms. Lina to say, how can I explain equities in normal balance? And they will tell you that they actually simply mean shares, you know, and this is a company, son, like I heard, what's the purpose of a company? The brother was here speaking, I was taking notes. Purpose of a company is established to make money. The bottom line is profits for the owners, for the shareholders, right? Do we say the equity holders? You don't really do. It's the same thing I think we used to do. Those that were on the general news pages or the court pages, they come and say, oh no, they've entered the Nole Prosequai. So what's the Nole Prosequai? You're even at a tea party or a bar. So not a process. No. You should, if you want to still sound legalese or legalistic, you can say nole prosequai, which means in English, you're speaking to me. Recently, there was a very huge story last week, a very huge story about the government scrapping off a 15% export duty on the export of precious stones. And I saw people kicking themselves around. I simply picked up the phone because I am not a very intelligent guy. So I like talking to people that are more intelligent than myself because they went to school to study a particular field. I called up one of my friends, an economist, former bank chief, and said, what does this mean in English? Why is there so much hula baloo, twiddle this and twiddle dam? So, oh, you know, how do I explain it? He said, no. Look, Ambassador, here's how you explain it. So, when there was a 15% duty, export duty, it meant that if you export $1 million worth of emeralds, then the government would get $150,000. Isn't it, Mr. William? That's the 15%. Was like, really? So then what's the complaint? They said, well, basically the complaint is that now, if you export as a foreign company or even a Zambian company, $1 million worth, Zambian treasury or the Zambian government will lose $150,000. I was like, wow. And I went around, you know, I went at this place we usually go to have a glass of wine, and I was sounding very intelligent. You know, Zambia is going to lose a lot of money. You know what it means? I just spoke to somebody who was more clever than I was. And they told me, but have you heard the argument of the government is that there is already 6% duty. So they are saying when you combine the 6% duty and the 15%, it comes to, you know, add the numbers. So it's a little bit too high. And I saw that story coming in today about the 6% duty. I knew about it last week. I had even written about it in my column. It was a big story, like Dr. Stumbeko Msokotuane had just come up waving a magic wand. You guys don't know what it was. No, but you only get to know this if you approach a story, if you approach the stock exchange, knowing very well that you don't know shit. Forgive my French. That you don't know anything. If you do not know anything, then people will tell you everything. Then you'll be able to explain properly, like you're explaining to a child, and you get educated yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, That's my mic. If you have any questions, we'll be ready to take it off. Like I said earlier on, Miss Lina has three, presentations that I have done for you, which she will forward. But don't forget that you also owe me and Miss Lina a story idea each of business, which you will need to submit to her, and make sure that once it has been published, we all get to know about it on the little circle that she's going to put together, so that this does not go to waste, so that you can remember something one day when you win an award, that you got the inspiration and the interest to report on something that people thought was boring because you put people first. The Lusaka Stock Exchange, don't look at it as figures and statistics. Look at it as people buying shares, trying to make money. My brother gave an example of why does everybody build apartments? Dara namanga ma apartments. Because it pays off and stuff like that, but it's all about people. I thank you very much for your attention, especially after the Nshima and having listened to all the important people that spoke before me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I think that was really good. That was really good. It was really insightful. And you got the industry expertise, yeah? Yeah, some wise words. And you can see he's been in the game for a long time and has got the experience. So what we'll do, we'll take a few questions now. That's for Munyumba session and also for Ambassador's session. Was there a session which I've missed? I think those are the two we've had. Before we get into the last one, what we'll do, instead of going into a tea break, I think we'll conclude then after the questions, we'll get into the last presentation, which is by Ms. Liapa. Any questions to throw? Okay, okay. Coming. So many cables.
Okay. My questions are placed to the two gentlemen. That is Ambassador Anthony Mukwita and the eloquent gentleman there, Muyu. Yeah. Earlier on, or throughout this presentation, we have been told that Lusaka Stock Exchange, the Lusaka Securities Exchange, was established in 1994, 31 years ago, and that it's now got only 20 listed companies. And there was an explanation that the reason why there's no marked increase in membership or people listing on the stock exchange is because they can't, like the old adage of you can take the horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink the water. But again, I find an irony. I don't know why, and that's my first question. I don't know why there is, despite the fact that you have done a strategy on how to respond to it, why you are still not able to have a noted increase in membership. Then at the back of my mind, I asked myself, is it not that you have not given them incentives? Like there is the multi-economic facility zone, MFAS in Zambia, where people have been given incentives and people are setting up companies there. So I was thinking that why not tell the government, like the Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, or the Minister of Finance, to say that one of the incentives for listed companies that you are short of a space, or each time the president goes out of the country to, like now the president is somewhere in Egypt. I don't know whether such would entice them. Then secondly, the second question is that in my view, I think that there is need also for you, like the the brilliant presentation. Why don't you think of finding space in our newspapers?
so that you can then we can give you space to explain the like consistently. Like for example, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, no, but I've given space to people who are passionate about the small and medium enterprises. They have a page. They don't even pay for it. Although people always accuse me that, no, Nindarama, Fusandarama, but I know that money will come later. But still, I can subsidize that space for you. I'm not showing off, but I can assure I can subsidize for you free space in my newspaper. Because sometimes you might think that the only newspaper that you should put your stories on is ABCD. I don't want, because they're all my friends. No. The question is simple. I was saying that there are two. The first question was, why is it that you are not giving incentives to people to increase the presence on the stock market? Secondly is about you, outreach. It takes two to tango. Why is it that you are just conveniently having this workshop, then you go to sleep again and come next time? Yes, that's a story.
Thank you very much. We've taken note of the two questions. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Faith Machpisa from ZMBC. I don't really know if it is a question or a contribution towards what has been discussed, but what I wanted to talk about is based on specification. We find that a lot is being talked about how a lot of journalists are not in the business world and reporting on that. But then you'd find a situation whereby we've got a lot of stakeholders at play. What am I talking about? You'd find a situation whereby you'd find this journalist at a business event. Again, you would find them at a health event, again a sports event, again another event. And then the thing that is going to happen is that when it comes to business, it is not just like any other bit that you're going to find. It's like you need to specify what exactly you want. So I'm talking about how we've got a lot of stakeholders at play, which is the media house themselves, because they are the ones who assign these journalists to events. Secondly, the companies that invite these journalists, because you'd find a company announcing about an event that they're having maybe a day before. But this is someone who needs to prepare themselves for that specific event, for them to have the right knowledge about it. And then thirdly, is also the journalists themselves specifying on what they want to do, because you cannot be at any other event, and business is very complex, hence you have to be specific, just like other people who do sports, where you specifically know to say, for example, practical example, Securities and Exchange Commission. A lot of people talk about how they've got complex, I would say jargon words that they use in terms of the capital markets. But then if you follow them correctly, they've had a number of things, a number of events, reviews, town halls, where they actually explain these things. So if someone had specified to actually follow them, to know about them, it would be easier for them to report on them. But then the issue we're having is that everyone wants to do everything at the same time.
Thank you very much. I think that was a contribution. Yes. Any other questions? Can we summarize? I know there's so many. Could we try and summarize in under 30 seconds so that the speakers know what they should answer? Very specific. You're good at.
My question is specifically to Ambassador Mkwita. Ambassador Mkwita, admittedly, when you're at Zambia Daily Mail, the sales picked up. Your news headlining was quite catchy. What's the secret to attracting catchy headlines in terms of attracting readers' attention to reading business news?
Okay, so let's take the questions which were asked. Munyumba, if you could start us off with the one which was this side. I guess you can answer it in part.
All right. So I'll start with thanks. I'll start with the first question about the growth of markets. The first question, I think the quickest way to answer what you're saying is, why are we not offering incentives? The first thing I think you'll recognize is there's actually a tax incentive for the first few years listed of any company. And also there's even a zero tax on dividends paid, especially even to your retail investors. Now, when it comes to listed companies, how to incentivize them, there's a whole ecosystem I think you have to get a lot more listed companies. Because listing your company on the stock exchange is not just a function and activity, it's a culture. These countries that actually list a lot, it's their culture. People build companies with hopes of one day taking it public. But if you ask a Zambian entrepreneur, why have you built this business? They'll just tell you to make money. And they haven't said that one day they want to exit. So it's called an exit, where you've built this company to a certain value and you're not just extracting profits, you actually sell part of it as a way to get money out of it and as a way to cash in to that. And a lot of entrepreneurs are also still trying to get, they're trying to get knowledgeable about that. So that's one component of it. Also, the thing is, early stage investing helps. These other countries where people get their companies listed is because somebody in the early part of their business invested some money in there, and on the basis that one day you're going to take it public so I can get my money out at a premium and at some profit. If we don't have those early stage investors, there's also not enough of a drive. So there's a lot being worked on in order to get that, in order to get a lot more of these companies listed. But it's also the fact of also getting Zambians to grow their companies in a professional manner. Asking just the regular Zambian who has grown their business, do you have books? You want to list your company, but do you have books? You'll find a 100 million kwacha business has no bookkeeping. That's shocking that you find in this country. So some of those basic business practices also have to be improved, because now let's talk about your own money, sir. If somebody took your savings into a company that has no board of directors, no books, no proper management, the CEO can just grab money straight out of the bank account and use it for whatever they want. Would you feel safe about your money going into there? So that's what those requirements of getting listed are there for. It's also to protect you and ensure that the business is able to deliver profits in the future for you one day. And it's a safe place for you to put your hard-earned savings. If you remember at the beginning, I said, it's people putting their own savings that they've worked hard for one day. Second question, which I think obviously the third question is at the ambassador, but the second question about why we don't take space in your what's it? It's up to you to establish a relationship with any financial analyst. But I must warn the media houses today, okay, that you do have a platform called Facebook where a lot of people are building their own audiences. So you have to speak to these analysts and tell them, what is your audience? It's not just about how much money your column costs. Do you have the audience I can speak to who are interested in making investment decisions and therefore probably interested in doing business with me? Because they use those spaces to market themselves. So it's not just about publicly talking to people about it. There are also businesses. There are also people trying to make a living. So is it a quid pro quo where you say, or a trade-off, where you say, look, I've got the audience, you've got the expertise, and you'd like to talk to that audience. That's the best way. Because I was on a radio station for 5 years every morning, and that worked for me. That was a deal I made with them because they had the audience I was looking for. So it's up to you to also deliver having the audience that an investment manager is looking for to be able to get them to write in your publications.
Hello. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Singel. The ball is in your court. You should see Mr. Muyumba there and make a proposal and ask him what he wants to publish and show him who you are going to reach. It's all yours for the taking, and you never know where you go from there. The lady, good lady from ZNBC, it was just a comment. That was great stuff. And the gentleman there, I forget the name again. Thanks for the commendation for the time at the Zambia Daily Mail. I like telling this story that when I first went there, there was quite some resistance towards those same headlines that you were talking about, that I was slowly turning the newspaper from a mainstream conventional newspaper into a tabloid. And some people even went to complain to the powers that be that looks this guy you have brought in from Australia, he's turning the newspaper into a tabloid, into a magazine, and the powers that be say, but the sales have increased, haven't they? Said yes. He said, how many were you selling before he came in? He said, we were doing about 2,000. How many are you doing now? It's about 12,000. Before we knew it, we had beaten everybody. We were doing about 35,000. And I think by the time I was leaving to go into the foreign service, the Zambia Daily Mail was one of the best told stories of having come in from down from the dregs to very high up, including changing. So thanks very much. But it's a bit different when you come to writing news headlines for business, as Muyumba initially explained, because these are cold-hearted, dry stories. Remember, people are going to make a decision on whether to buy a stock or to dump it. So if you are going to be too exciting in the way that you do a headline, you may force people to make a wrong decision on whether to buy or not. So normally it is just the hard, cold facts that you would put. Universal of China has bought Nkana mine at a going price of $50 million. That's it. The next thing is you have to authenticate who has said it, when did they say it, and can this be verified? That's why you find in a real hardcore business agencies such as Bloomberg or Reuters, there is nothing like sources. You do not source a story for Bloomberg. If you are going to source a story, you will have to have a chat with the editor who is going to say, who did you speak to? Said, I spoke to the Minister of Finance. But because they will only be making an official decisions through a ministerial statement on Monday, he asked me to withhold his identity. Are you sure you got that? He said, you can do an undertaking. Bloomberg will even tell you, we are Bloomberg News. We don't get things wrong. And in fact, what they will do is, if they ever got a story wrong, the first thing is, as soon as possible, inform the editor that you got a figure wrong so that you can immediately apologize. Bloomberg or Reuters would like to apologize that 2 hours, 3 hours ago, we reported that Zesco is bound to be sold for $5 million, when the actual fact is that there is a company that is going to invest this, given this structure and stuff like that. You have to correct immediately. So you find that you gain the trust, which you spoke about from the very, very beginning. That's why I was saying you are more respectable as a journalist doing business news, because of the very fact that you are reporting mostly on facts compared to this stuff that you see on social media. So most of the time when they send me stuff on social media, they say, oh, you know, there is this, you know, police have arrested the chameleon. You know, it might appear in court and stuff. The first thing I would like to do is ask a lawyer and find out whether we've got any laws against chameleons and stuff like that. And then I'll know whether to dismiss the story or go on with it. So if they come and tell me that there is a company from India that has bought a Zambian company, before I even go ahead to publish, I would like to find out from those in the industry to see whether the industry really even has a relationship with that particular company. And that's how we would go on reporting about it, or decide not to even report on it at all, because numbers and facts are very, very important in reporting business.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Okay, so I know there are tons of questions, but we're losing time. We have got one more presenter who is coming up, and they will focus on the aspect of being inclusive in terms of, we've got the business news, you've got the stories. Now, how can we be more inclusive? How can we reach out and make sure most people know what we are on about as an exchange, as capital markets, the commission, as associations, anyone who is within the capital markets space? Okay, so that person is Liapa. I think she is here and I think she's ready, so I can ask her to come through and speak to us about it. As she does, there's one small addition from Sitali, and then we can proceed with her presentation. Thereafter, sorry, Sitali. Thereafter, we will essentially be coming to the end, so we can have the questions which were pending, we can have those answered as well.
Okay, just a small addition. In terms of incentives that the Commission as well as the LUCE maybe has put in place to attract companies to list in order for us to increase the listing. So firstly, you've noticed that we've been in your face, in the public face as a commission. We've been quite intentional by going out there to create awareness. You heard the acting CEO mention that we do town hall meetings every last Thursday of the month. That's simply to create awareness on what capital markets from the investors' point of view, like from investors, to create knowledge, to give you knowledge on what to expect in the market, what the benefits of investing are. We do those on a regular basis, simply to create the appetite and to create the awareness on what this market is all about, and to also break down the jargon that we've talked about today. And Munyumba also spoke to that as well. He spoke to the fact that the LUCE has got listing rules, and those are requirements that you need as a company to come on board. So the reason why we have those rules are simply because, if you remember from the presentation in the morning, my presentation and Thomas's presentation, we spoke about our mandate of investor protection. The rules are needed because we need to protect the investor at the end of the day. When you and I invest in the capital market, you need to be sure that your money is safe. You need to be sure that the person that you've given your money to buy or sell on your behalf is legitimate, has got a license. They are qualified to do that. So that's why we have those rules and regulations and name it for someone to come into the market or to trade on the market or to buy and sell on the market. But in terms of incentives for companies that want to come to market, there are fees that a company needs to pay in order to be listed, okay? And on a case-by-case basis, as a way of incentivizing or attracting companies to come to market, the SEC does give waivers on listing fees on a case-by-case basis, get me right, okay? So we do make it attractive. We do try to make it attractive. But as, was it Lina or Munyumba who mentioned in their presentation, that coming to market is a business decision for a company. So it still comes back to how much awareness have we created? How much has this company noticed or seen the benefit of the capital market? Which is where you as journalists and our media colleagues come in to create that awareness. But how are you going to know about this market and the benefits it's offering? It comes back to another point which was mentioned in the presentation, to say you need the knowledge. You can't teach what you don't know. You can't speak about what you don't know. So we are quite grateful that you made time to be here. And we are grateful, and also want to just mention that you need to know that you're a very important stakeholder in this equation. So we need to learn the jargon so that we can demystify it, break it down to the market, make it more attractive. Hopefully in the next 5 years or so, we'll see better listings or more listings in our market. Okay, thank you. Just thought I mentioned that.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you to the LUCE and in collaboration with the SEC for hosting this. My name is Liapa. I am CEO of Money Acumen Advisory. We are a licensed investment advisory firm and dealers by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Zambia. I should say I'm very excited, and I'm glad to have Munyumba in here. I'm very excited for this to finally be happening. So what has happened in the past is you find experts such as myself on subject topics, or Munyumba trying to play both, away from your day job or your full-time job. You're also trying to get knowledge out there to the public on what's happening on the capital markets and in as much as we love doing this because it's an extension of who we are and what we do, would love experts such as yourselves that have been trained, media trained, you are journalists, you know how to write, and to be able to disseminate this information the right way. So you're here for a reason, and hopefully we can learn how to package this information because you are a key part of the capital market. So thank you for creating the time. Okay. So our conversation today is around financial inclusion in media dissemination. My focus will be to just show you how the capital markets and just the financial space has fared in the past couple of months. And most of the data here has been derived from the FinScope survey 2020 and also the financial inclusion strategy that was recently launched, which will be running from 2024 to 2028. I'll agree with my colleagues. I think Munyumba and the gentleman that was here before spoke about factual, your data being factual, yeah? And that's the first thing that you will notice from my presentation. You need to know where to find the data, but more importantly, how to communicate it to the end user, okay? So financial inclusion is a cornerstone of economic development, ensuring that individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products and services. Okay, and despite significant progress in Zambia, gaps still remain that hinder full participation in the financial sector. Why? Because again, the media plays a crucial role in bridging the gap by translating complex financial data and capital market data into digestible, accessible information. We see this on a daily. As alluded to earlier, people don't know how to get started on investing in the capital markets. They have no idea what fund managers do, the difference between a unit trust account and a savings account in the bank. Do they know the difference between the money markets and the capital markets and all those things that are included there? That speaks to financial inclusion. Are they financially included? There are people out there that have no idea what a bank account is. Again, make reference to the the FinScope survey. You'll find all this data. People have no idea what insurance is. They have all these myths around how the investment market works. Why? Because of scams and just, not having the right financial information or just information around capital and money markets. Yeah. And that is where you come in to ensure that everyone is financially included. And more importantly, like mentioned earlier, factual and well-researched data, especially when it comes to investing or getting started on investments. The reason why the SEC exists is to ensure that, one, there's a regulated space where investors can come into and ensure that both the service providers and the end user who's the investor are protected. Okay, so you need to understand some of the data that is involved there. How do you tell an investor how to pick which financial institution they go to? How do they pick a stock? Even just the basics, yeah? Do you pick based on emotion, or do you look at certain data? What ratios are you looking at? There are all these items, and you are at the forefront of disseminating this information, okay? And interpretation. So interpretation speaks to the different demographics that exist. You have the younger crop, you have the older folk. You also have people that are educated to a certain degree, people that are educated, that are highly educated. How do you interpret data to different demographics? How do you interpret data to a low income earner, to a medium income earner, to a high income earner? Everyone interprets data differently. You, as a media expert, should find the balance on how to disseminate that information. Okay, so in as much as you be collecting this data, I need you to find a way of interpreting it to the respective end user you are targeting. Okay, so Zambia's economic journey over the past decade has been a turbulent one, which is very evident, marked by highs and lows that have shaped financial inclusion and the capital market participation. From 2017 to 2022, we've seen GDP growth average around 2.5%, but the real turning point came in 2022 when we saw it shrink to minus 2.79, of course, by the influence of COVID. Okay, and whilst the country saw a rebound of 4.6% growth in 2021 and 4.74% in 2022, the recovery still remains very fragile. And for many Zambians, our key problem, or let me not say problem, one of the contributing factors is low disposable income. So disposable income, by definition, is what remains after your expenses. So if you earn 5,000 kwacha and your expenses are amounting to 4,500 kwacha, your disposable income in that case is 500 kwacha. So the lower the disposable income, the harder it is for individuals to invest. So you need to keep track of macroeconomic indicators that influence low disposable income. I wasn't here, but I like to believe Munyumba spoke to the different types of macroeconomic indicators that influence disposable income. So those are some of the key items that you are looking at. And also, we are still hindered by the traditional banking and informal savings that exist out there. I'll tell you, as on a personal level, there are items that exist like village banking. Village banking is, it has, how do I say this carefully? It's there are two sides to the same coin, yeah? It has its pros and its cons, yeah? Its pros in the sense that it really does expose people to the savings and investing part, yeah? People can easily access finance from their village banks, yeah? But on the downside, you notice that there's this money running in the informal sector that is not getting into our capital markets, okay? So in as much as we appreciate what Village Bank is trying to do, would also appreciate that money being a part of the capital markets, okay? So you find that Village Bank groups or informal savings group go as high as 5-10 million nowadays. Do you know that? Do you know that, yeah? How many people in here in Village Bank groups? Okay, yeah, so we have a few. And you'll notice a lot of us know people that are in village bank groups. Why? Because there's, again, like I mentioned, there's the savings aspect to it or the investing aspect of it where you find that funds are growing between 3, even up to or as high as 10% per month. Okay, and then on the other side, you find that a 6 months lending rate of 20% is in place and whilst we appreciate the informal setup of these products, quote unquote, they are not regulated by the regulator, and those are some of the downsides. So what happens when someone runs away with your money? Who are you going to report to? When you go to the police, they'll tell you there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah, the best they can do is help you track the person, but that's where it ends. Okay, but if you have a regulator side by side, you know, where you are investing, you can go to them, lodge in a complaint and say, listen, I invested my money here. This is what was told at, at onset but they're not following through. What do I do? There are all those items that have been put in place. So in as much as we appreciate the coming up of these informal savings, we would still want you to ensure at least disseminate the information that there's a structured way of investing. That way we even reduce the number of people that are getting scammed. Okay. The reason why people don't know that the reason why people get scammed is they don't know that fund managers actually exist. They don't know that a pooling system in a well-structured institution exists. If someone comes to you saying, put aside 500 kwacha or 1,000 kwacha, and another person puts aside 1,000 kwacha or 500 kwacha, because you've never heard of it, it's very easy for me to think this is something that can help grow my savings. But it's unstructured, it's not regulated. But if we told the masses that the same product that's being offered to you, quote unquote, exists in a well-regulated system, people would fall less for scammers. So we need to speak to that too. Okay. And also something to speak to is items like this is a bit more jargon, but I need you to understand that even as the living costs of individuals rise per individual to individual, we keep seeing I want to explain this in the most in the least jargon as possible. Yeah. So a lot of us keep talking about the wealthy and the poor. Yeah. I'm an investment advisor, so I need to to distill this information. We keep talking about the low income earners and the high income earners, yeah? And the growing margin between the low and high income earners. And why is it that we keep talking about this saving and investment culture whilst, knowing or being very aware that the low income earners can't actually save or invest because, they have little disposable income as compared to wealthy individuals. Fortunately or unfortunately, is whether you have little or not, you are still required to invest for your future, because whether you like it or not, that time is coming, retirement is coming, your children need to go to tertiary, and the onus is on you to ensure that you get started on your investment journey. The same way, there are certain products that are meant for wealthy individuals and so on. We all exist within the same space. It's the same fund manager that is, managing someone with a low income earner that is managing someone or someone's portfolio with a bit more income. So I need you to understand that bit, even when you're communicating, and hence it speaks to demographics. So don't have that mentality in the back of your head. For me, I don't mind whether you earn 5,000 kwacha, 2,000 kwacha, or you earn $10,000. The service is the same. The conversation is the same. If we're speaking about you, we're speaking of you putting aside 10% of your income every single month, I'm going to ask of someone that is earning $10,000 the same way I'll ask of it from someone that's earning 3,000 kwacha. The 300 kwacha, which is your 10% of 3,000, will eventually grow through mechanisms like compound interest and. So those are some of the key items that you need to keep in mind. Okay. So when we talk about financial inclusion in Zambia, we need to understand that it goes beyond owning a bank account. It also involves items like access to credit. We also have our colleagues in the PIA industry, which is pensions and insurance, and also investment opportunities. So while progress has been made, deep disparities persist across urban and rural areas, age gaps, and limiting the effectiveness of financial expansion efforts. So the urban-rural divide remains the most pronounced challenge. In urban areas, financial inclusion rose from 70.3% in 2015 to 83.8% in 2020. So while rural areas saw a slower increase rather, from 50.1% to 56.9%, leaving a 26.9% gap. Okay, so you also see that some different demographics uptake information differently. For us in the rural areas, we're a bit more open-minded. Yeah, when I come to you, when Munyumba comes to you, when the team comes to you, and we're having these conversations about investing, chances are you uptake that information and translate it or implement it in the shortest possible time. Whilst that is not the case when you go to rural areas, what are some of the barriers? What is the difference between how this particular demographic is uptaking this information as compared to this particular demographic? So again, interpretation of the information that you get here matters a lot. It is one thing for you to know how to write good English, and you want to use the jargon, and you want to use this very expressive data there, and it's another thing for me not to understand it. Then your work is left futile. Okay, and also poor financial infrastructure and low literacy rates keep rural communities reliant on informal savings and mobile money services rather than formal banking. I spoke to this earlier. There are people out there, believe it or not, that have zero idea what a bank account is. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do. Okay, thank God we have mobile money now, so people do have some access of financial inclusion to them, and we have seen that MNOs have uptaken that opportunity to introduce things like insurance on it, and yeah. But it's also up to you as journalists to ensure that financial inclusion goes higher from the 56.9% that we're seeing there. And also gender disparities further limit financial inclusion. Whilst women access increased from 57.4% to 67.9%, they still lag behind men, who saw a rise from 61.2% to 71.2%. Okay, just to speak to this, we see this, we might have this view that women are seemingly doing better financially in the rural areas. But that might also not be the case, rather in the urban areas. It might not be the case in rural areas. Again, you want to do some extensive research on it, and more importantly, find a way of interpreting that information to the people that are affected. Cultural and economic barriers restrict women's access to credit and investment opportunities, making targeted policies essential for closing this gap. It's only now that we've seen products now that are being tailored to women, women banking, women investment groups, even just, the initiative of village banking. Okay. But the initiative of village banking in most of the rural areas came as a result of women not feeling financially included. Okay, how can we do this on our own? How can we find a way to access capital? I want to start a business, you want to start a business. There are items like chilimba that go around, and those are part of informal savings. How do you interpret everything else that has been explained here to someone that has, even just a bit of an idea of saving, saying, now that you know this part, or now that you have the basis or the basics of savings and all, there are these products and services that exist for you in the capital markets, just so you can break down some of the barriers that exist. Exclusion is also high among the elderly and the youth. Nearly 43.3% of the elderly population remain financially excluded, facing barriers like limited pension access and digital literacy. Okay, so we have seen, especially on pension access, we have seen a lot of reforms there to ensure that, the elderly are getting access to their funds. But the limit here has been digital literacy. Why? Because everything now has been digitalized, yeah? And we don't blame, we don't blame how financial institutions now operate, yeah? So there's the upside and the downside of it. So where do you come in as a media expert to ensure that the elderly that don't know how to interpret, how to use digital gadgets and have access to the same information as someone who's younger that's able to access this information digitally? So again, if it's a traditional way of going about it so that the elderly have access to this information, please do so. It goes back down to segmenting demographics. And meanwhile, many youth, 16 to 25 years, struggle with banking and investment due to unemployment and restrictive credit policies, despite Zambia's youthful population exceeding 43%, under 15. Okay. This, again, it has factors attached to it, items like unemployment. When we look at restrictive credit policies and our banking industry, or the money markets, let's call it the banking industry, has ways in which someone can access financing. But when we talk about the capital markets, for us, the capital markets is not age restrictive. Okay. Yes, you need to be 18 years and above to formally, open a bank, an account, an investment account. But when you go to the LUCE does have minor accounts. Do you know that? Do you know that you can open an account on behalf of your child? I don't know if any of my colleagues mentioned that. Did you know that? No? Yes. If your child is 5 years old, you can start investing on the stock market for them. That's how Warren Buffett became a millionaire. He started investing at age 11. Of course, he didn't have, the right KYC to get in there, but he had parents. And that is what the LUCE have also done. Okay. So our capital markets are not age restrictive. When it comes to, setting up the future of your child, if you want them to have X amount to be a millionaire by the time they hit 30, you can calculate that via compound interest. And you find that it's as little as 250 kwacha or 300 kwacha a month to help your child get to that amount by the time they're that age. Okay. This is something you can do as a parent. So those are some of the items that you want to dig in deep. Again, segmenting demographics. Okay. It will still go back to the same principle. So despite these challenges, financial inclusion rose from 59.3% in 2015 to 69.4%. That's a great number in 2020, with formal financial inclusion making significant strides from 38.2% to 61.3%. Okay, so if we've done this without, heavy involvement of the media, I can only imagine what we can achieve with you guys. Yeah, we can do better, is it not? Yeah. Okay. Mobile money services in particular saw a surge from 14% to 58.5%. Okay. Bridging some financial access gaps. You can go onto the Bank of Zambia website and see the transactional reports, banking transactions as compared to mobile money transactions. I will not preempt anything. I just need you to look at bank transactions against mobile money transactions. It will blow your mind. Okay, that is the progress that has been made in terms of financial inclusion. However, while mobile money has brought millions into the financial system, traditional banking services remain largely out of reach for many, particularly in remote areas where physical access to banks is limited. And this is why you've seen now initiatives by, let's say, the banks now in the financial markets talking about bank outside the branch and yeah. So even they're helping drive the agenda of running away from the traditional brick and mortar and setting up bank outside the branch initiatives. Okay, so the role of the media in bridging the financial inclusion gap. The media is a powerful tool. I'm sure everyone has alluded to that in addressing these disparities. Yet it must overcome multiple challenges, including financial literacy gaps and the digital divide. Financial literacy levels remain low, with only 23.6% of adults being financially literate. So remember, there's financial inclusion and there's financial literacy. Okay, so whilst I'm included, now I understand that there's mobile money and I'm able to transact. Do I understand the products and the services that exist for me? Okay, that's where now financial literacy comes in. Do I know how to plan? Do I know how the long term looks like? Do I know the repercussions of me not being financially literate? That's where you come in. Okay. And also, while 80.7% of households own a mobile phone, smartphone access is predominantly urban centered, leaving rural populations with limited means to access digital financial services. So the beauty about mobile money is we have the USSD function. That means I don't need a smartphone to access my money. I just need, a feature phone. Yeah. But what happens to the information that you are sharing online? I won't have access to it if I'm living in the rural areas. I, for one, who's in the urban areas, know how to get onto these online platforms. But you also need to think of people that actually have feature phones. That's something that some or one of us can write about. I know you've been given an assignment to submit your articles. What about the people with feature phones? How do we get to them? Okay, are we together? Is it making sense to someone? Okay. So public awareness campaigns have been instrumental in driving mobile money adoption, yet traditional media approaches have struggled to engage rural and low-income populations. Again, it goes back to how do we disseminate the information. And also one-size-fits-all financial literacy campaigns are also proven ineffective. Again, I want every one of us to get all this big data that you'll collect from here and everything that you'll find online. But when you sit down, please, by all means, divide it by the demographics that you are aiming for. It's not a one-size-fits-all. The colleague that's seated next to you has a target audience, which means the target audience is very different from yours. One-size-fits-all, again, goes back to work being done equal to zero. Okay. And also incorporating multiple languages. That's another thing. We're here, we can all understand English, we're all very fluent, but there's someone out there that can only understand Tonga, others only understand Lozi, others only understand Bemba. I need you to challenge yourself, saying, I want my data or my information to be effective to, again, my targeted readers or end user. When financial information is provided in languages that individuals are familiar with, it increases their understanding of key concepts, basics, rather like savings, budgeting, investments, and financial planning overall. And in the long term, it makes financial literacy a bit more inclusive and empowering, and it also builds trust and credibility among local communities. So some of the items that we've faced is even when you read through the FinScope Survey 2020, which I implore you to go through, you find reasons as to why people don't uptake several or different financial products. They'll say insurance is a scam. Okay. Insurance is a scam because you're not explaining it to me in a way and in a language that I understand. So if you come to me with your fluency in English and you're not respecting the fact that I'm not understanding, my automatic response is to reject everything you're telling me. Okay. So you haven't built trust with me. So building trust is understanding how I want to be spoken to and how I receive information. And I need you to distill your information in a way that the other person can understand. Okay. Accessing, so now we have media platforms, utilizing accessible platforms. In many rural areas, access to smartphone and the internet is limited, making traditional digital platforms less effective in reaching a broad audience. Therefore, leveraging community radio stations and SMS-based financial education programs presents an effective way to ensure that financial literacy reaches these undeserved or underserved populations. Community radio stations, which are widely accessible, even in remote areas, provide an invaluable tool for disseminating financial information. These stations often have a loyal, again, building trust, localized audiences who tune in for news, entertainment, and so forth. By partnering with community radio stations, financial literacy programs can air informative segments. I think Munyumba spoke to partnering with radio stations or radio station partnering with experts. This is one way to look at it. Okay. And also SMS-based programs are also highly effective as they can reach people directly on their basic mobile phones. Again, the feature phones are coming up here. Bypassing the need for internet connectivity or expensive data plans, these programs can send short, digestible, the keyword there being digestible, financial tips, reminders, and advice in the form of text messages. For example, daily tips on savings or weekly challenges that encourage financial planning can be delivered via SMS, reaching a wider demographic. Can I understand what it is that you're trying to say? Yes, you can include financial inclusion or the FinScope survey in there, but if I don't get it, I really don't get it, and I'll reject the information that you're offering. Engage in storytelling. This was widely covered in the session before mine. I believe in storytelling. Why? Because I'm an investment advisor. Storytelling helps me relate with the next person. Storytelling makes my conversation or my information relatable to the next person. Okay. Items as simply as, or let's put it as a story. A story simply as, have you seen, the security guards, the much older security guards that we see that are working that are rather as security guards? Someone is in their 70s, their 80s, but they're still working. Why is that? It's because when they were as young as you and I in this room, they didn't plan for their retirement. Retirement means rest. And this is why it's been pegged at 65. Why? Because you've already contributed to society. It's time for you to rest. Put the tools down. Okay. But in the absence of financial planning, in the absence of investing, and in the absence of shying away from these products that are being offered to you on the capital markets, you find yourself that post-retirement, you are unable to sit still and rest. Why? Because you don't have an income to speak to. How much is NAPSA paying you? They're paying you only what they can afford, yeah? How are you going to live on 1,300 kwacha monthly? That's very minimal, yeah? Others have, lesser amounts of money. So your first instinct is, I'm going to go back into employment. So whilst that is commendable, if you can go back to work, that's not the case of retirement. So you need to find a way to make your information relatable. I need you to start planning for a retirement now, because come rain, shine in between, this time is coming. Right now, you currently earn 5,000 kwacha. The day you stop working, your income cuts, it stops coming in. What do you do thereafter? Okay, what are the implications of not planning for your retirement? What are the implications of not planning for your children's education fees? Things like university fees. You have a two-year-old. In 16 years' time, that child will be going off to university. Your first instinct is, I hope they do well in school so they can get a bursary. It's not a bursary, it's a loan. And that's why Helsby calls them loans. Okay, it's a loan. Now imagine your child is starting off their life with minus 200,000 kwacha. Those are the loans. Do you know that? They're starting off with that much debt. How many of us in here have a 200,000 kwacha loan? You're scared, are you not? But imagine you're placing that loan on a child. So, yeah? So I'm graduating at 18, I'm graduating at 20, and I'm graduating with minus 200,000 kwacha. Okay. So those are some of the items that you need to speak to parents about. Your child is still young. That's how people in the West, of course, it's not everything that we need to copy from the West, but this is why in the West, when a child is born, the parents start saving towards the child's, university, because university is expensive. And whether you like it or not, the child is going off to university. So those are some of the key items that we want you to put out there. Are you planning for your child's fees, or you're banking on them getting a loan and leaving them highly indebted? Okay, so engage in storytelling. Find a way of making it very relatable. Get the data, yes, but interpret it in a way that I can understand. For us as IFAs, we call them disturbs. So if you come as a client, we'll do what we call a retirement disturb or an education fee planning disturb. What that does is, by the time I'm done with you, your mind should be so rattled that you want to start yesterday. Okay, so I need you to get to a point where you start disturbing your audiences, where I'm like, okay, what did I just read? And why did I not read this 10, 15 years ago? Yeah? If you're starting out employment, and I'm giving you like certain pieces you can write on, the day you start working, whether you're earning 1,500 kwacha, you're earning 5,000 kwacha, start saving, start putting aside 10%. That 150 kwacha is still a lot of money. Okay, so there are those key items. People that have been working for 15 years here, that have been averaging, or maybe you've averaged an income of 5,000 kwacha or 4,000 kwacha. If we calculate your 500 kwacha, which is your 10% of your income, times 15 years, most of us in here are supposed to have in excess of 600,000 in our bank accounts. Do you know that? Do you know that? Am I lying, Munyumba? Am I lying? No, 15 years. If just in case you think 15 years is a long time, 2010 was 15 years ago. Do you know that? 20 years was 15 years ago. What have you done between 2010 and now? Okay. So had we been put, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your honesty. So had we been putting aside, so these amounts look very minimal, but it's compound interest. The stock market, our local stock market performs, they always perform in the top 5 stock markets in Africa. In 2020 and 2021, the LUSA was named the top performing stock market in Africa. Why don't you have shares on the LUSA? Huh? I didn't get that. Why? Why have we not been investing? Yeah? This is when you're learning? Okay. So now we don't have any excuses going forward, correct? Correct? Yeah? So I need you to demystify all these myths that you have, things that you heard from your neighbors, friends, wives, sisters, and just take them away. Find a way on how you can make this information relatable. Okay, run your numbers. Now you're going to be financial journalists. Run your numbers. Do a short course. Yeah. Okay, I'll speak to that. I digress. Okay. Yeah, but I needed to get that out because I'm very passionate on disseminating information relating to investing. People relate, and I promise you, they do relate, and they're hungry for this information. They just don't have people telling them this information. Okay. Yesterday went when we didn't know, but today going forward, the onus is on you, and we will track your records. We will. I personally will jump on that ship to track your records. Okay. We do need you. Okay. So that's that on storytelling. Let me just read the second paragraph. So storytelling can make financial lessons more memorable. Humans are wired to remember stories for better than dry facts or figures. The only reason why I'm giving you figures here is because you're intellectuals, yeah, but not everyone has that privilege, which can sometimes feel overwhelming or impersonal. A case study about overcoming debt or the benefits of investing for retirement can stick with people longer than just a list of financial tips. The narrative provides context, emotional connection, and inspiration, making the information not only understood, but also motivating individuals to take actionable steps toward improving their financial well-being. Comparative lessons from other countries. So when we look at financial inclusion overall, we can learn from our neighbors. Yeah, okay, but let's not call them neighbors, but Kenya in East Africa. So Kenya has M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is mobile money. Yeah, they're the ones that brought the drive and all. So you can read about how M-Pesa is large and it's taken over the financial industry in Kenya and the financial deepening that M-Pesa has brought to Kenya. So today, over 96% of Kenyan households, not just 96%, but over 96% of Kenyan households use mobile money compared to the 58.5%. So whilst we're making progress in Zambia with mobile money, because remember, mobile money at least reaches anyone with a SIM card, so that's our best bet as we speak. We're looking at countries that have gone ahead and done in excess of 96%, replacing existing debt with a new one at lower interest rate. So you find that for them, they've introduced so many services on this particular platform, other than just the initial transacting. So you want to read up on what M-Pesa is doing. Okay, and in Nigeria uses foot soldiers. You can read up also. That's a case study that you can undertake. They use foot soldiers in terms of helping open bank accounts and so they go into the deepest areas of the country to help every single person that they come across to open bank accounts and so that these individuals are financially included. And hence that bit saying we do have other financial institutions that have introduced the bank outside the branch initiatives. Okay, so these are some of the case studies that you can look to when you are looking at countries that are making progress in financial inclusion. Okay, so these are just some of the key takeaways that I need you to think through. One, the stock market investing. I'm sure a lot has been said about it. Please talk to clients. Okay, not clients. Talk to your end users or your audiences about investing on the stock market. They are missing out, and unfortunately, that's going to be our problem. Okay, if an 18-year-old or a 21-year-old is not investing as we speak, or a parent is not investing as we speak, it's because we didn't tell them. Okay, so we need to tell people about the opportunities, the great interest rates, or rather return on investments that exist on the Lucy. If you look at Airtel, who can guess by how much Airtel appreciated last year? Who can guess? Pardon? I'm looking for a percentage. The share price. How much? By how much do you think Airtel appreciated? No, Munyamba is an expert. He's not going to answer. No. Yeah. It's a question. How much do you think Airtel appreciated by in 2024? Like the stock price. Anyone have an idea? Okay, let's guess. Guys, were you not reporting about the stock market? Anyone in here that reported about the stock market at the beginning of this year or at the end of last year? Okay. Hello. What did you report about? Maybe let's not put you on the spot. What did you report about?
Loose activities like how it performed last year, challenges, achievements, and the outlook for this year.
Okay, in 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, tell me about what happened on the Luce last year. Your key highlights.
There were challenges, but it was resilient.
Okay.
And the momentum is expected to continue this year. And about 2 companies also might list this year.
Okay. Any numbers that you can make reference to? No?
No.
Okay, okay. It was resilient, but I would like a bit more context. Okay. So you can start by talking about which one was the top performing stock on the Luce last year. How much did it appreciate by? Okay. Which was the least performing stock on the Luce last year? How much did it lose by? Okay. What influenced the gain in Airtel, for instance? Yeah. Can someone guess what influenced the gain in Airtel? We're always complaining about Airtel network, are we not? Yes? We're always complaining about it, yeah. So how can a stock like Airtel have appreciated in value if we're always complaining about Airtel? Anyone care to guess? Anyone care to guess? We're learning, we're in class today. Anyone care to guess? No wrong answers? Why do you think Airtel as a business thrived last year? Because it appreciated over, is it 114? Munyumba, was it 114 or 140%? Airtel. Is it 140 or 114? 114%, yeah? It appreciated by 114%. 114%. Yeah. So is your interpretation that they were making money off that? Yes? Okay, let's hear her feedback. Let's hear her feedback, yes?
Yeah, like they partnered with more companies when it comes to Airtel Money. Microfinances came on board, the Zamcash, and more. I think last year about more than 3 or 4 microfinances went on board on Airtel.
Yeah.
And then I think they also expanded some of their services.
Yes.
Airtel.
So that is what I want you to think when you're reporting on the stock market. Yeah.
Mr. Sinjela, do you work for Airtel Money?
Okay, so another item that I need you to think through is when reporting, please be factual. Don't speculate. Only unless it's really there and you can point to it, please don't speculate. But that's the kind of thinking I want you to think around. Delve deep into the listed companies. Okay. Sometimes it's just market sentiments that that contribute to a share or a stock appreciating. Okay. But I need you to go deep into the details. Why did Airtel appreciate in value that much? Okay, so despite, like you say, challenges, the challenges were due to load shedding and some of the services were, were affected, like poor network and all that. But there are parts of the businesses that were thriving. We already spoke to mobile money on this side. Okay, that is part of Airtel. That part is still thriving. So I need you to dig deeper and delve deeper and find out the intricacies in these businesses. The Standard Chartered is selling off a bit of their business, but it's still appreciating in value. Why is it still appreciating in value? Okay, so in as much as you look at one front, I also need you to look at another front. Go deep into the business. Okay, what does the investor look out for when they're buying a Standard Chartered share? So there are all these key items to think through. Okay, look at dividend policies. So we're winding down. Look at dividend paying companies. Which ones have dividend policies? What are the dividend yield rates for last year? Which company paid the most dividends? So that when you're speaking to prospective investors, you're telling them that information. Okay. So if you're investing for, are you investing for income or are you investing for capital appreciation? And which stocks are you looking out for? Of course, there's a very thin line between financial advice and financial literacy. But as you disseminate this information, have facts. Okay. Again, dividends, capital gains, run simulations for people. Okay. This is what you stand to lose if you don't start investing. Even when it comes to the fund managers on the market, we have different types of fund managers on the market that are licensed by the SEC. Find out which ones are which. Find out which ones are ranking first in items like asset under management. Which ones have been in the business longer? Which ones are thriving in which particular industry, and so on and so forth. Just so you can have that information as, you know, as a financial media expert. Okay. Bonds, now we keep seeing a downtrend in interest rates on the bond market. What's affecting that? What other variables are affecting the downtrend in interest rates? Okay, since when do we have 5-10-year bonds, you know, performing at 21% to 22%? What happened? When did we move from the 26% to the 21%? That's something that you need to look out for. Which one of the other variables, macroeconomic indicators, are forcing the downtrend in interest rates? That's homework. I'm not going to tell you that. I need you to research on it. Okay. Insurance and protection, that's also part of someone who's financially literate, and also, like we spoke to, retirement and financial planning. So in conclusion, Zambia's journey towards financial inclusion is progressing, but significant gaps still exist in financial literacy, capital market participation, and rural access. The media, in collaboration with financial advisors, policymakers, plays a crucial role in addressing these challenges, but more importantly, with the regulators and other stakeholders. It's all about partnership, okay? So by translating complex financial data into accessible knowledge, media houses can empower individuals and businesses, fostering an inclusive financial ecosystem that supports Zambians' economic growth and objectives for 2028 and beyond. So the financial inclusion strategy is running between 2024 and 2028. So whatever it is, again, go and look out for the financial inclusion strategy. It's online. Just type in financial inclusion strategy Zambia. The document will come. Go and read through what the government, the institutions, you know, the regulators are trying to achieve in terms of financial inclusion in Zambia, so that you see where you fit. And ultimately, financial inclusion in Zambia will only be fully realized when access, affordability, and awareness are addressed simultaneously. The capital markets must evolve to accommodate retail investors by simplifying account opening procedures, explaining transaction fees, and promoting investment opportunities tailored to different income groups. I'll end with this information that I got. I really hope you make use of this information. Okay. So in 2023, total investors were sitting at 529,280. Okay. And on the LUCE, we had 53,359 investors. Currently, we're sitting at 728,822 number of investors. Okay. Is it possible for us to hit 1 million before the end of the year? Even by June. It is, yes? It is, correct? Okay, people don't sound confident. It is, yes? Okay. You can help everyone in this room, all the stakeholders in this room hit that number. 728 is a good number, but 1 million is an even better number. If we've done 200 without the active involvement of everyone in this room, surely we can double or triple that number by the end of this year. I'm looking forward to having an engagement such as this very soon, where not just us, from the capital markets or CMOs presenting, but having you guys present to us from this front on what feedback you're getting from the communities that we exist in. Is that okay? Can we have some of you come to present to us next time? Okay, looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Liapa. Thank you so much for the presentation. Do you see that the mission is large? Huge, massive. Okay, now I'm standing in the light. It's massive. And I think we all have a role to play. Ourselves as capital market players have got a role to play. Yourselves as the media community have a role to play. In fact, government policymakers also have a role to play. But I think we can, each and every one of us can do our part. That gap is wide. I think there's a lot we can do in terms of financial inclusion. And especially with regards to what we're talking about today, capital markets, we can get people to understand this particular section. So what I'll do, I'm only going to take a few questions now, simply because we've run out of time and we'll need to close as well. So what I'll do is I'll ask 3. These should be concise. We know what concise is. I know you guys know what concise is. It's just very difficult to execute. But concise, to the point, right, and clear. 3 questions for Liapa. Oh, she was that good, right? She was clear as well, so she got our attention. Are you sure no questions? Where's the question? Here.
This one is not for Liapa. I had a question for Mr. Mutwale. I'll keep it kiss, not stupid. I'll not keep it stupid. Yeah, just wanted to find out, because one of the requirements for listing on the LUCE is financial publication of financial reports. But we have a situation of Invest Trust. So I want to find out, how did we miss finding out about Invest Trust, seeing that it's more like came as a surprise to all of us? Was it maybe they are falsifying their financial reports?
Any other question? Okay, at the back. Oh. So you need voice.
Okay, so mine is a question on financial inclusion. How are you collaborating with other stakeholders? I know here we are concentrating more on the media, but I understand that, for example, in the education sector, between 2017 to 2020, there was a pilot project in certain provinces and schools where you had a book called Financial Literacy, which had various topics, so that you could also begin to engage the pupils or the children from an early age, especially during their lessons when it came to extensive reading. Since it was a pilot project, now what actual projects are we running so that we don't just rely on the media, because some people don't have radio stations, television sets, and also some may have phones, but they can't get to this information because it has no relevance for their part.
One more question.
Hi, thank you. My name is Thomas from Sun FM. My quick question is bordering on financial inclusion itself. Within the stats that you did highlight on earlier on, you did speak of the elderly as well as the youths that are not fully included within the financial space. And I would want to tie it to something that obviously all of us are accustomed to, that is mobile money. Reports as at the close of 2024 indicated that as Zambia, we recorded an increase with regards to the uptake of mobile money in the country. And of course, within that regard, it poses a threat on individuals being scammed also on the platform, because we've seen an increase in fraudsters. So as we are also noting the gaps that exist to those that are not financially included, how do we then begin to speak to the increase of mobile money usage in the country to ensure that we are balancing the conversation on both ends? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm scared to start with Munyumba's question because it's going to take a long time. Yep, are you ready to answer the questions? Yes, go ahead.
So who have we partnered with on this agenda? So you will notice that we have 3 drives in a year under the Ministry of Finance, the SEC, the Capital Markets Association of Zambia, and the LUSE, and many other stakeholders. So at the beginning of the year, in March, we have Financial Literacy Week. There's World Investor Week at some point. There's World Savings Day. In other industries, PIA, there's Insurance Week. Yes, so we'll speak to those, yeah? So when you look at these days or these weeks that have been, strictly concentrated to focus on these topics, a lot of key stakeholders come in place. So you have government there, you have policymakers, which are government, you have the regulators, respective regulators, and the operators in those respective industries. So I'll speak to the capital markets. So with the SEC, if you go back, you can go back years. When it comes to key weeks like Financial Literacy Week, it's been so aggressive that so much so that it's not centered on Lusaka. So they partner with the financial institutions, the individuals that exist in the capital markets, to go out into different provinces. So different institutions will pick on which province they're going into. And it's not just a town hall in one place. They go into different, like if let's say, like last year was Chipata. If you go into Chipata, yeah, there are different activities happening simultaneously, not just in Chipata city, but around Eastern Province. That is what's been happening the past couple of years. So this is an agenda that has been pushed aggressively to an extent where we have the Capital Markets Master Plan. Again, read extensively. There's a Capital Markets Master Plan that has been developed particularly to look at how we're going to operate as a capital markets, how we're going to grow as a capital market, in Zambia. So all those key items will be found in the Capital Markets Master Plan, but a great deal has been done. Almost all the financial institutions that you can name are on it. When we talk about the books, so we have grade 8 to 10 literature, and we also have grade 10 to 12 literature. That also has been done in partnership with the Ministry of Education, the regulators, and also financial sector deepening, which is FSD. So that also involves a lot of items, the key variables like funding but the agenda is already set. The ball is already rolling. What we just need is more partners to come on board so we can print more books, so it can go extensively beyond and far, all the provinces that we're willing to target. But it's something that is already happening. Yeah, we can look at how far it's gone so far, and maybe that's a piece that you can report on. Okay. Scammers and mobile money. So when it comes to being scammed, I'll tell you that even first world countries, we're a third world country, even first world countries suffer from scammers in the sense that these are the downsides of technology. Yeah, I can't speak so much to mobile money because mobile money exists in the banking sector, but I will tell you that there's partnerships with regulators like ZICTA that have been made to ensure that even as we introduce financial products that are, digital, and we're introducing this fintech frenzy that's going on, financial technology, Zicta has been extensively involved. So we will see a rise in all these negative sides, but not to say that the regulator like Zicta are not working hand in hand. Okay, so maybe for an extensive report on that, you might want to have a chat with Zicta so they can tell you how much has been reported and what, in terms of financial crimes, has it reduced? Financial crimes related to mobile money, have they reduced in the past couple of years? They can give you all that data just so you can compare. But we can't stop fintech because of, one small enemy, and I will categorize it as one small enemy because it is a global enemy. Okay, what we can just look at is how are we curbing it, or more importantly, how are we containing it? And that's something that Zicta is working hand in hand with Bank of Zambia. So Bank of Zambia and Zicta should be able to answer that question for you.
Look, yeah. So the question regarding you were talking about Invest Trust. If I got it correct, how did we miss that? It's actually something I mentioned in my presentation, where I was saying that if you're going to do so, part of what Liapo was talking about is more educational information, things like storytelling and that. If you're going to do informative information, the ambassador said you've got 20 companies, 20 stories. So you need to keep track and keep tabs on these companies if you're going to be a stock markets reporter. You all would have picked up very early. First problem, 20, and I've got the numbers here. 2015, Invest Trust lost 51 million kwacha. 2016, 38, 47, 109, 96. 5 years in a row, the company was making losses. You would have picked up very early if you were keeping tabs. So this is one of the things that if you're going to be a good stock market informative reporter, you need to have almost like a station in your somewhere on your computer where you're saying latest Invest Trust financials, I'm keeping up, so I'm keeping. Remember I said always have 5 years back and so forth. Plus, if you are also now keeping tabs on them, you'll know, aren't the financials supposed to be coming out? Aren't the financials supposed to be coming out? You would have picked up that by 2020, 2021, there were problems with the reporting that were coming out. And that would have been a story as well. So as long as you keep these things, as long as you keep tabs on these stocks, it helps. And this is why we're saying we need the media, because you keep a lot of these companies on their toes, because it also gives them, if they don't adhere to the rules that SEC and LUSE give them, the media will pick it up and say, what's going on? And now their brand reputation starts to fall. So you are also, the reason why you're given freedom of speech, you're protected as the media, is because you have this duty to society to make sure that everything that is in the dark comes to the light. Okay, so if you keep tabs on these companies, for example, and I'll just use one example. I know that it doesn't mean that this company is going to fold or anything, but you would have kept tabs on the fact that National Breweries has gone from a profitable company to losing 250 million kwacha a year. You would have picked this up. And you should be concerned as the press reporting such a thing. You don't sensationalize it, but you report it. And if you keep reporting it, even they as a company will start to pick that up. And other companies that may be in those rooms. But keep tabs. This is what we're actually imploring you as the press. Keep tabs on these companies and keep a folder for them. That's the quickest way for all of you to pick up this stuff.
And also maybe just to add on to Munyumba, I'm not answering that question, by the way, it's for the authorities. Just to add on to what Munyumba has said, the more you report on the stock market, the more you report on the capital markets in general. Remember, the capital markets has a stock market, it has the CIS, which is unit trust and fund managers, market, and we also have the bond market. The more you report on it, the more it comes to life. Our capital markets is very small. Why? Because there's no news churning out. If you go to Zimbabwe, for instance, you'll find someone by the roadside reading on the stock market. But we don't have that information here. Every single day, people are keeping tabs on what's going on the stock market. We want a second stock market. Sorry, Lucy. But we want a second stock market. We want all these things to be happening, but we can only do that with you guys. So keep information coming out so that we can grow our our stock market. I'll leave the question to the regulator.
Thank you very much. I think just to keep tabs on that, I think as the exchange, and maybe, yeah, I'm speaking as the exchange, there are certain obviously things which we do which trigger. One of the things we do is we disseminate, number one, the information that, hey, shareholders, cautionary, take caution, there's this happening. So shareholders, remember, they're able to make some of these decisions in the company. When they see certain things, they should light up and say, oh, okay, this is happening. Shareholder, another cautionary. So we are always updating the market of what is happening within the particular entity. And in this case, I think a lot of what is said about InvestTrust has been because of the data flow or sudden shock of information now when it came to the final point, sensationalized, when there was a track record in the past. And I think the market did its part in terms of making sure that information is out to the public. So I think it's an onus on ourselves and it's an onus also on the media to make sure they take keen interest in these things. With that said, thank you very much, Liapa. You can take your seat. Could we give her a round of applause? So we have come to the end of this media workshop. Before we do, I know we have run a little bit over time, but we just want to, first of all, before the acting CEO of the Securities and Exchange Commission comes to give her closing remarks, what I would like to say is, on behalf of the LUSE, thank you so much for attending this workshop. It has been, for me, from what you have contributed, it's been eye-opening. I've learned a lot from yourselves in conversation, questions, the responses. I've learned quite a bit. And I'm hopeful that you've also learned from us as capital market players, what's in the market, what does it look like? And maybe, and you know, I think there's so much more that we can collaborate on and work together on. We've got a good bunch of people in this room who are more than capable of taking the story out of capital markets. So once again, I want to say thank you. I'll now ask Mrs. Johnny to come forward and give the closing remarks on behalf of LUSE and SIC. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. There's a physicist whose name is Albert Einstein. I'm sure most of you know him. He said that commit yourself to lifelong learning. The most valuable asset you ever have is your mind and what you put in it. I hope that as we are closing this very, very interactive workshop, you've been able to have a lot of takeaways that will not only improve your career, but will also improve you personally. There's so much that we've been able to learn from you, and I hope that you've also learned from the presenters that came to speak to you today. Capital markets is not as complicated as people think it is. Like I said earlier, it is the willingness, your open-mindedness, which will allow you to be able to grasp these concepts. The moment you understand capital markets, you'll be able to then better disseminate the information to your stakeholders who are the public that need to know this information. As a Securities and Exchange Commission, we pride ourselves in collaboration and working together with other stakeholders. You have been identified as one of our key stakeholders, and therefore it's important that such collaborations do not just end here, but continue. So we plan to have much more of such type of collaborations in future. So this is not the end, but it's just the very beginning. You can see that there's so much more information that we can share from ourselves to you and also learning from you. We also appreciate the feedback we're getting from you in terms of how we can improve your work. What is it that we can do to make your reporting even better? So we appreciate that feedback. Give us that feedback, and then we'll be able to tailor-make training to be able to suit those particular needs. I think I'll be failing in my duties if I don't read the speech that has been prepared by the hardworking team from the SEC. Otherwise, then it would be a waste of their time. So allow me to read it. So good afternoon, colleagues of the media. As we come to the conclusion of this important training on capital markets, I want to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for your active participation and engagement. Today, we have come together with a common goal to enhance understanding of the capital markets and build a strong partnership that will contribute towards the growth of our capital markets and national development at large. The role of the media in shaping public perception, raising awareness, and disseminating accurate information cannot be overemphasized. You are the bridge between the capital markets and the wider public. And your role in educating investors, reporting market developments, and promoting financial literacy is critical to the growth and success of our financial markets. Today, you have gained deeper insights into the workings of the capital markets, the regulatory framework under the Securities Act, and the important role of market participants. With this knowledge that you have gained today, I'm very confident that you are now better equipped to collect information and report on capital market issues with accuracy and clarity. This will go a long way in ensuring that the public has access to timely and reliable information, which is essential for building trust and confidence in our markets. I also want to highlight the importance of collaboration among the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Lusaka Securities Exchange PLC, as well as the media. We are committed to providing you with the necessary support, resources, and access to information that will enable you to carry out your work effectively. We believe that a well-informed media is key to promoting transparency and accountability in the market. As we look to the future, we at the Securities and Exchange Commission remain focused on our mandate to develop and regulate Zambia's capital markets in a manner that supports economic growth and provides opportunities for all. We will continue to engage with you, the media, as partners in this journey. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank you for your dedication and commitment to enhancing financial reporting and for your valuable contributions throughout this training today. Let us continue to work together to promote a deeper understanding of capital markets and to support the growth and development of our financial sector. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you have this positive impact that this training brings to you in your future reporting. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Acting CEO of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and thank you very much to those who attended once more. Just a quick thing, one or two things before we depart. On your tables, there's the Sandy's Creation Resort Conference Evaluation Feedback. Please do so for the sake of the team here who has hosted us and give them your candid, honest feedback. Please do that for them. Secondly, all those who registered in today, please pass through the entry desk. As you're passing through the entry desk, there'll be a team there to assist you with something before you leave. For those who didn't put on the registration form, I noticed when you were writing, your email addresses, some of them may not be clear, and then you won't be able to get the information, which you so desperately need from us, right? So what we would like you to do is to make sure that it is clear so that we send, first of all, the information that was presented here today. All the presentations and all the data will be sent through to you. And then secondly, if there are any market activities which are happening, so anything within the capital market space, we'll inform you so that you can come through. I'll give you a key one, which is coming up, well, this Friday, actually. This Friday, there may be a launch, a media launch that LUSA is doing for a CSR campaign. We're doing a Teach 1,000 Learners this year. So that's our campaign. It's going to be at ZCAS University. So please feel free to come. We'll send through, if you submit your email, an email, so that you can come through to see that. That's a key one, because remember, we're talking about education. So that's a key one for you to look forward to. Apart from that, if I have missed anything, if you've got any questions, I'll also send through contact email addresses for those specific. So from the SEC, from the LUCE, from ZAMCOM, within the same pack, which we'll send to you via email. So apart from that, I hope you've learned a thing or two today. Yes? Good. Are we going to apply the thing or two? Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening and a lovely rest of the week.